365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Empty backfield, trips right for Bo with a snap and throw. Steps, no throw there, going to run to the right. Now we'll throw wide open end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. Touchdown, Ducks, Tez Johnson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Penix wants to throw, looking downfield, looking, takes a shot, Roman Dunze! Did he hold on? Yes, sir! Touchdown, Washington! Roman Dunze! Playing a Bolitnikoff kind of game. Another explosive, this time for 33, and the Huskies take the lead.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Benson on the delay. Good call, well executed. Benson heading toward the end zone. 38-yard touchdown, Florida State.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Florida drops into a zone. Daniels trying to run it. Gets some space. What a move! Jaden Daniels again! Jaden Daniels, touchdown LSU! 51 yards!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Loftus with 3 touchdown passes tonight in his second career start, trying to tie the game. Throws, end zone, no, and that's it. Carolina keeps the victory bell in double overtime.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Wednesday. Man, what a nice stretch of beautiful, beautiful weather. Upper 40s earlier this morning. Beautiful sunny skies, clear as a bell, at least where we are. Hopefully as well where you are. Garrett, on those 1 and 2 texts, we'll do that a little bit later on the tweets. We'll do that in a little bit. We'll start with this. By the way, you guys remember the mailman?
Yes.
Corby Simpkins. He listens to us every day. Corby driving around also listens to us. He used to be a mailman in the Waco area. He contacted me last night. Life is good. My first grandson, he's awesome. He listens to us. He heard your story about when I did the illegal U-turn and said, man, we missed that white Tahoe, although it was a rental car. But he also has come up with a brine injection that's hitting the shelf in a couple of weeks. He's going to send us a package of that. Blake Blackmar's used it. Did you want to say hi to Corby, the mailman? Great friend of ours, and it's great that you're doing really well.
Yeah, I love Corby. He actually texted me the other day, reminding me of a conversation we had when he asked me if I thought Jimbo Fisher was a good hire at A&M, and I told him, I said, I don't really think he is, given what the last couple of years of his FSU tenure had been, but, I didn't know I would be exactly right about that, until 3 days ago.
Well, you are now. Yeah, you for sure.
Yeah, well, shout out to the mailman. I haven't talked to him, seen him in a long time. I used to see him at the old office regularly, but glad to know he's doing well, and thanks for listening. And, yeah, just glad that things seem to be going in a good direction.
All right, some coaching notes. One, that remember yesterday some of the discussion it has been really about Lions head football coach Dan Campbell. Never thought that was the case. I know the loyalty, the love of A&M, and he's a hell of an Aggie. But Dennis Dodd with a story that he's not a candidate for the A&M opening, as Aggies, of course, seek to replace Jimbo Fisher. You see coaches leave. Matt Rule from college to the pros. Others, Nick Saban. There's others that have done that. Chip Kelly has done that. But it's rare that you see a coach go from the NFL, although Rule was fired and went to Nebraska, go the other way, especially when you're having success.
If he was the Dolphins tight end coach still, that had a couple of interim coach stints, then that makes it very realistic. But the Lions head coach, and not the Lions head coach like Rod Marinelli was, just flailing at that. The Lions head coach that's rejuvenated that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we can just kind of move on from this one because there was really no chance of this ever happening given what he's got going on right now in Detroit. I know that A&M has a deep love, the people that go to A&M for that school, and it's unique. And I know that everybody thinks that their own situation's unique, and I guess, every situation is unique to some extent, but especially I feel like at A&M they think theirs is a different breed, right? And he's one of them, and maybe that's something that happens one day. I don't think that's, an idea that is gone for forever because the NFL can be very fickle and things can go awry very quickly. But for right now, yeah, that's a no-brainer that he's going to stay with the NFL team that's playing really well and having one of the greatest runs in the franchise's history. That's not a surprise whatsoever. And again, that A&M job will be out there. That'll be open again, when there's an opportunity to arises and it's a different situation. Timing is everything, and maybe the timing will be better. But right now, the timing makes no sense for him to make a move to back to college football.
Meanwhile, one of the programs that had an awful offseason, Northwestern, because eventually Pat Fitzgerald fired as the head coach, a former player, a longtime head coach. They are on the verge of naming David Braun, who's done a hell of a job. They've kind of been quiet with what they're doing in the West of the Big Ten, 5-5 with 2 games to go after last year 1-11, and because of all the drama during the offseason.
Yeah, no, he's done a really good job, and getting the 5-5, and when you fire the head coach, it is an uphill climb for everybody emotionally all year, and David Braun's done an excellent job to get them to 5-5 again. They were 1-11 last year, so yeah, I think he's absolutely earned a shot at getting that full time. And Northwestern, again, one of the more difficult jobs in the country, sans controversy, because your recruiting pool is very small.
Right.
I mean, it's not
right.
You can't just go everywhere and ask people to come there. So you've got to be hyper focused and getting the guys who can be Northwestern students as much as they are Northwestern football players. So, give him the shot. He's winning with those guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, what a whirlwind year for David Braun, right? I mean, coming on board as the defensive coordinator, and then you're an interim by summertime, and by the end of the year, you're the full-blown head coach. So it's been a wild 2023 for him to go from promotion to promotion to promotion in a row like that. It's very strange, but I guess that's why you always stay prepared, right? You always, you don't wait for the moment to come to you. You got to be ready for the moment when it strikes. And so he could have had little idea that he would have these opportunities this quickly in front of him, but clearly he was ready for them, even though they were, obviously things that were out of nowhere. And, as a result, he's been able to right the ship and stem some of the water from getting on board and been able to keep this thing upright. And so, I'm not surprised to see that they're happy with the job that he's done, far better than probably anybody expected given the circumstances heading into this year. And, well done, and now you're rewarded for it. And so that's a spot on the coaching carousel that I don't think ever really got all that heated up, and we never really dove into. It's kind of the fourth or fifth school you even mentioned when it comes to the openings, just because it's not the big football job that you probably think of with some of the others. But that's a relief too, I'm sure, for Northwestern fans, that you don't have to sit here and get drug out through a long coaching carousel process or be afraid that you're going to whiff. You've got a guy already that's got his teeth sunk into this and is doing pretty well. So that's a great move for Northwestern.
Congratulations to him, because he took 1-11. Everyone said, okay, that's who we are. But go 5-5, and now on the verge of a bowl game with 2 games left to play. Meanwhile, last night that hearing between Oregon State, Washington State, and the rest of the Pac-12 that's leaving. There's a lot of different reporters. Nicole Auerbach, this is hers. The judge rules in favor of Oregon State, Washington State. Preliminary injunction has been granted, and now they are the only 2 voting members of the Pac-12 board. The other 10 schools must still be treated in a fair and open manner and cannot be harmed. One of the quotes from the judge: this is not a shutout. Nobody's going to take advantage of somebody else. Of course, the 10, they were disappointed. I'm sure it now goes to an appeal, but at least for now, and John Wilner will join us. Here's the statement from the 10 who are leaving. Are immediately seeking review of the Washington Supreme Court, requesting to put on hold implementation of this decision, on and on and on, and eventually in the best interest for our student athletes, athletic departments, universities, as far as leaving. And so there we are. The hearing didn't take long. And last night they came down with a decision. John Wilner will join us here in about 15 minutes on that decision.
I think the key thing would be that they have to treat the other 10 members in fairness, which means that they can't just go, who's getting all the money? How about Oregon State and Washington State? Washington State, you're good with that? Okay, so are we. All right, next thing. Who gets all of this? We do. Who
has to pay the what's the name of the company that
Comcast. Everybody but us.
Those 10 guys do. Yeah.
So that's not how it's going to work.
I'm just glad it's at least for now. It'll go to another level of court, and it'll be a different, maybe the same judgment or something different.
And part of the reason he had to say that is because if he didn't, there's more than a reasonable chance that they could have tried to do that.
Yep.
And then they're back in court again because then the other 10 are like, look, we understand that we might have given up our voting membership on this, but that doesn't mean you get to steal things from us that we've earned because we're getting these money for our games, and all of these things that were agreed upon when we were all together. So, yeah, Oregon State and Washington State are going to control assets, but that doesn't mean that they get all the money.
Yeah, that's still the part that's very confusing to me is I've seen the arguments back and forth of like, well, if you're leaving a job, you don't get to take everything with you. It's like, yeah, but if you worked for like the full year, you still get your paychecks for that year.
Yeah.
And so I just need some clarity on like kind of how all that's going to work. And obviously all of the people involved need clarity further on how all of this is going to work, which is why you could still very well see them come to some sort of a settlement now that this is ruled in the favor of Oregon State and Washington State for the meantime. But, yeah, I mean, there's some legal battles still to wage here. There's obviously the opportunity to appeal, which, it gets into terms, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a legalese, so, like, when they start talking about staying the order and things like that, like, Paul, I'll defer to you to be able to help explain that a little bit more.
Right.
But I do know that now it's basically they asked to stay the order, and then I guess by the end of the week we'll have some more clarity.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't go the way of the 10, then you'll get the appeal, right, from Washington or whatever that would look like. They would appeal that ruling, and then you'll get into more of a prolonged battle over, the assets and the judgment. And then however long that takes, who knows? And so there is a little bit of a time crunch here, you would think, for everybody involved to want to be able to go ahead and sort this out and move along with their business. But, yeah, the idea of just those 10 not walking away with anything is seems a little silly to me. But I do think that Washington State and Oregon State, based on the way that the bylaws were phrased and the way that the Pac-12 itself had set precedent with USC and UCLA, that the argument was pretty clear and simple in favor of the Beavers and the Cougars. And so I think that's what you saw yesterday. It was definitely home field advantage. They had a friendly judge presiding over the case, and it was just down the road. Will that be, the case at this next step? I don't know, but it was a good day for Oregon State and Washington State. Keeps things alive as far as rebuilding the Pac-12 potentially, or at least gives them a significant amount of money to either rebuild the Pac-12 or who knows what else opportunity is maybe out there for them. But obviously you got to clear up the rest of this before you can start acting with that money. And there you go with him saying, I believe it was a male that said that you can't, no funny business from either side.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you won today, but you can't go and spend all this money and all that. So there's a long way to go here still.
Because Oregon State and Washington State literally could have walked out and said, okay, we got a meeting right now. And then,
what do you all think?
check.
Well,
check.
200 here, 200 here.
Well, that is the thing is, he did order to where the 10 can be a part of the meetings involving the Pac-12, but they don't have any say whatsoever in the actual decisions that are made. They can provide advice. They can recommend or give their 2 cents. But for the most part, Washington State and Oregon State could be like, oh, really, USC? That's great. Screw you. And then we're going to do this anyways. I mean, they can do that based on what was ruled yesterday. But the money part of it, that's still tangled up because, like I said, there's likely to be an appeal depending on that stay by the end of the week. And so we'll see where this takes us. But that was a good first step. But it's not the only step. Still a lot to figure out here.
Quick answers from both of you so we can get on to some other news. If, in fact, Washington State and Oregon State took the $400 million and they got a larger piece of it and then spread it out others, let's say 10% less or whatever, is that going to fly?
Well, I mean, it all depends on what the courts say, I guess. I mean, right now it's their money, but they can't really touch it.
Well, as the judge said, this is not a shutout. You can't just go do whatever you want.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand, I guess.
I think they have to
What I'm saying is we know that it's going to be a court issue. Eventually, it's going to finally up the flagpole where there's nowhere else to go. But if Oregon State and Washington State met with the others and said, listen, we don't want this thing to get sloppy. We're pissed at you still, but we get it. We would have done the same thing. They don't need to admit that. But
they would have, though.
We're gonna take, I don't know what the number was, 412, but let's say we're going to take $50 million each. Or whatever the number would be, and you guys get $30 million each. Do you think they would say, "Hey, shake"?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think that that kind of figures that maybe the 10 would say, and $30 million each. I mean, that's not what it's going to work out to, though, and that would not be enough, I would think, for Oregon State and Washington State to feel good about it. I think they'd want way more chunk of the pie than
they need protection
50
for the
piece.
Next year or two.
They want more like 75 a piece, and then everybody else can get the remaining. But no, I do think that. Yeah, you look for a settlement here more so than dragging it out. So if there is a way to accommodate everybody, and that's probably what you start or you have been working on or you start to work on now of, hey, what about, y'all split $100 million, we get the rest of it, we get the network, we get the, this and we get the that, we get the name, and y'all get y'all's money and we all just go away, then I think that there's probably somebody or all of those schools that would be tempted to say, okay, we got some money. All right, let's go.
Because they're about to get more.
Yeah, they're about to recoup it in a major way here in a couple of years. So, I think that a settlement's definitely possible, but what that looks like, that's what obviously would need to be figured out.
College football rankings came out last night. There's one change. Georgia has slowly and methodically moved themselves up to the top, of course, coming off a very one-sided, lopsided win against the ranked Ole Miss, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State. The four remain the same: Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Right there outside of that, as they look for somebody else to eventually play each other or have a bad day. And speaking of which, then we go to what Russ Dellinger does every year or every week. If, in fact, it was 12, this is who you would have. It's changed up a little bit. Alabama, Missouri, Michigan, Tulane, Oregon, and Oregon State, Texas, Louisville. That's changed a few times on who they would play. And then the other four top seeds would be waiting in the wings for whoever won the first round game.
Actually, theoretically, this is almost could happen if everything were checked, except for Oregon and Oregon State because they play next week. So
it's just based on the rankings.
But as far as all this could almost be the thing. It's just.
And my whole theory is that they would never make that the first round game. They would change up the 12.
Yeah,
that they would not play again.
They would kick Oregon State up to Texas and move Louisville down to Oregon or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Or whoever would be 8. Alabama would play one of the two or something of that particular way.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the rankings, Georgia back at number 1 and overtaking Ohio State. So you've got the Dogs back in that top spot, and I think they flexed their muscles here and shown that they're a pretty complete team and really beat up Ole Miss, and so that was something that impressed Boo Corrigan, as he was saying on the show last night. I'm sure you guys watched and you know what I'm talking about here. But no, I mean their resume and just the total package, I guess, is what the selling point was for Georgia to be back in that number 1 spot. And Florida State's an interesting case there. If they win out, they're going to be in, but. You wonder about the pack behind them and Washington in particular. What does that look like? Because Washington would have a better resume if they went out. So that would bump Florida State, you would think, if they're able to win out, which is easier said than done, obviously. Although that Apple Cup looks a lot less dangerous than it has in recent weeks. Of the two big Civil War and Apple Cup, the Oregon side of things, definitely the tougher matchup. The Washington side, not so much. But yeah, Florida State. 5 unbeatens now. They've got that 4 spot, but like I said, if everything were to stay chalk, then that would be an interesting decision to have to make. But I think you look at Washington's resume, and it wouldn't be really that much of an argument.
Oregon, and that's if one of the two, Ohio State, Michigan,
but Ohio State, Michigan will play, so that will
or one of them gets blown out.
Again, if any team goes undefeated, they're in the 4, and so if you're in Florida State or Washington's position, who are going to be the 3rd and 4th teams no matter what. If there were 4 undefeated teams, and the first 2 are Michigan and Georgia, Florida State and Washington are going to be 3 and 4. There's no, in whatever order you want to put them in, you're just happy to be in the 4 at that point.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't be going, oh, darn, because
you damn sure don't keep your eye off of what's in front of you rather than what others are doing.
In the 4-team playoff, if you're either of those teams, you are drawing a difficult card. It's not something you're going to be like, oh, I wish we got Georgia because we might slightly match up better with them. Like, either team's a buzzsaw.
Yeah, the Ohio State-Michigan is going to change that. But if you're looking at those two programs and who deserves 4, then I think you look at Washington's schedule and you say, yeah, they've had a little bit of a tougher road. So that's one that you look at and you're like, okay, but the fact that there is Ohio State-Michigan looming, it clears some of that mess up for them, which I'm sure the committee took into account, so it's not that big of a deal. It will work itself out.
You wonder, though, if Ohio State-Michigan just might flip if it's 21-20 or 17-14 or something like that.
That starts to enter the equation. We got to cross that bridge when we get there, but, yeah, you do wonder about that.
We're going to eventually get to that bridge, that's for sure, because they're going to play each other. Now, Caden Jenkins, the freshman defensive back, who's probably one of the most dynamic players among very few that Baylor has had this season, he put this out earlier today on his Twitter page, respect my decision. So, of course, a lot of people wonder, all right, what is the decision? And there is the thought, because of what's going on around with the program and what the future is of Dave Aranda, is this the possibility of him making a decision to stay, or also the possibility with 2 games left at some point in the transfer portal? He then came back with this one as well. Keep going. You got people dependent on you. And, of course, the people who respond to that. I put it up there because I reached out to somebody in Baylor administration about this, and they said Baylor's coaching staff, as you could imagine, and they have to be, recruiting him every day, every single day. And they have been for months, even probably before the scoop and score against UCF that really put him on the map. But, yeah, that was something that, of course, is rather interesting to see what that might mean, or it just might be a young man who just wanted to put something up on Twitter to see what the reaction might be.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some aspects of that. I don't see that as much as I feel like I used to, like when Twitter was probably a bit more popular before X was the thing. But you used to see a lot of this, of like the mysterious wording of a tweet and a lot of grown-ups trying to read between the lines on what does that mean? Is he flipping his commitment, or is he? And I haven't done that in a while, so this is like a walk back down memory lane trying to decipher what an 18 or 19-year-old's trying to say on social media. But I think there's some element of, knowing that you're getting attention. I think he's getting attention that we probably don't even realize behind the scenes.
Yep.
If you were to make a list of the guys on the roster who are probably being reached out to, I would say he's right there at the top of the list. Because of his knack for the turnover, and also the fact that he's a young guy and just has been one of their better playmakers. I can't speak to him, as a whole, his entire game, his flaws and all that just yet, but, he's made some plays in the midst of a sea of a lot of bad football. And so, he's stuck out, and I'm sure there's been a lot of people with eyes on him and are interested. So he won't be the only one. That's the challenge now for Dave Aranda and company is, we talked to Mac Roach yesterday, and he didn't give it a definitive answer, and nor did we expect him to on Dave Aranda's status. I do think that you can't go out there yesterday and say, like, he's going to be our coach no matter what, because then it's just like they can go get blown out, and then just it makes the situation so much worse and so much more toxic. You also aren't going to fire him at this point, and you got 2 games left. You're going to let it ride out. But I do think these next couple of games, especially this Saturday against TCU, are going to have some weight in what the feeling is. And if you go out there and you play a competitive game, then that will lead you to believe that, hey, maybe there's some things still going right, and we're going to ride this thing out. But if you go out there and you get beat the way you got beat by multiple other teams this year, and you get embarrassed in Fort Worth, then I think it's just going to be that much harder to try and sell everybody on running this thing back as is. So I hate that you, in this era, have to re-recruit your guys. I get the whole environment and why, but it just, I don't know, that kind of sucks, right? I mean, just from a fan's point of view, is you can't even really enjoy your roster for most schools outside of like the top 15, and even them, they get picked apart as well. But the fact that you just got this guy, he's having a great year, and your immediate thoughts are like, well, now we got to fight to hold on to him, just kind of sucks. That's where you wish there was some, I don't know about contracts and things, but it's just hard as a fan to be able to really embrace and wrap your arms during a tough season, because then you now have the fear of like now guys can just jump ship. And so that's a fear that Baylor fans should rightfully have, and that coaching staff should rightfully have. And that's a guy where I think it makes a lot of sense to have some concern.
We'll watch and monitor that, but there will be others you monitor as well, as again, Baylor with 2 games left in the season. Coming up next, John Wilner, the Pac-12 hotline, his thoughts about the hearing, the decision, what is next, or what he thinks is next. This is 365 Sports.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
During Jeep Adventure Days, save big on 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee Limited with values up to $5,500. Or 10% off MSRP on new Jeep Gladiators on all trim levels. Or 10% off MSRP on a new Jeep Compass at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
John Wilner, Pac-12 Hotline, and also covered the Pac-12 conference for many, many years. I don't even know what to call it. I guess it still is that, but things will change soon. John, thank you. Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Did anything from yesterday's ruling surprise you? I know it now moves to the next level, I guess, of court or the jurisdiction or whatever it might be, but did anything surprise you?
No, not really. It kind of just reinforced the perception that the Pac-2, so to speak, Washington State and Oregon State have a much better case than the 10 departing schools, because what Washington State and Oregon State are arguing is to continue the precedent set over the last 13 months. Meanwhile, the outgoing schools are trying to kind of drag this thing into the definition of words like notice and withdrawal, and they don't have any real-world examples to point to as evidence. So we'll see. I mean, it could have been appealed to Washington Supreme Court or an appellate court in Spokane, and if that's the case, I think it's going to drag on for a long time, and there's probably a better chance that we'll see a settlement through mediation.
John, but this doesn't, like, even if they win, like, the appeal gets denied, no settlement, all that. Oregon State and Washington State just can't take everything. Like they've been told to be responsible with this, and they can't just vote people under the table or whatever that they would do, right?
No, they can't. I mean, the bylaws are clear. The judge was clear, right? This is a dispute mostly about $420 million worth of revenue coming into the conference in the current year, the current academic year. And the 10 outgoing members think they deserve their fair shares of that. Washington and Oregon State cannot take that $420 million for themselves. They have to share it. The question is exactly what the number is for sharing, and that depends on the liabilities, right? Pac-12's got a bunch of lawsuits going on. They're going to have to buy out the commissioner. So there's a whole bunch of liabilities, and nobody knows exactly what the cost of those liabilities is. Once they figure that out, I think they'll have a better idea of what the revenue share should be for the outgoing members.
Yeah, John, because there's going to have to be something doled out to them, right? Especially when you're talking about money that was earned while those teams were still in the conference. It would just seem silly that they wouldn't get any slice of that. And I think that's somehow how it's portrayed is that, money that Washington football or basketball might have earned, they're not going to get any piece of that. That doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, some people would tell you it doesn't make sense that the outgoing schools would get a dime because they left the conference in chasing, to chase money. And so why are they, why should they get any of the money that's coming in now? I mean, that's the way some people think. Others think they do deserve their fair share, but it doesn't really matter because the bylaws are clear that there has to be a reasonable distribution, and the judge was clear that if there isn't a reasonable distribution, he's going to get involved again. So to me, it's like a divorce, right? Mm-hmm. And they're just trying to decide what the number is. Is it, the full share is $35 million a school. Is the number 30 that would keep everybody happy enough? Is it 25? I don't know, but that's basically what we're talking about.
Is there a chance, based on what you've heard and also the law, where I saw somebody sent this to me, when the Washington lawyer, University of Washington lawyer, delivered the threat that the conference could still be dissolved by California law where the other 10 do not have board members. Is that possible, or is this only available based on what we end up seeing or hearing among those two left and whatever legal issue is a final decision?
Yeah, I don't really know about the dissolution based on California precedent, to be honest. And there's a lot of, I don't think it's confusion, but uncertainty over where this could end up, right? Because you've got Washington State and Oregon State have sued the Pac-12, which is in San Francisco, or in California, and then you've got schools from 5 states that are kind of looking in from the outside on a case that's unfolding in Washington. Would the attorneys generals for the schools for the other states all try to file temporary restraining orders to prevent Washington State and Oregon State from taking control? That's a whole nother deal. The dissolution thing, I don't quite know if that's accurate what the Washington lawyer was arguing. They certainly spent a lot of time in their legal briefs discussing the potential for dissolution, and that's why Washington State and Oregon State are so concerned about giving up board control, because they're worried the 10 will outvote them, dissolve the league, and split all of the assets, including those in the future, amongst the 12. And that would really put Washington State and Oregon State in a bad spot.
So, John, how much have you enjoyed becoming a legal reporter over the last few months?
I know. The thing is, I've really enjoyed this stuff, or the media rights, the stuff that affects college football off the field, and those things are having a greater and greater impact on the sport. And I enjoy writing about all of it, but not at the exclusion of the games and the competition and everything else. In the last couple of months, I've spent an awful lot of time reading legal documents, probably a little bit too much.
John, I know you can't predict the future, and that's what we're talking about, is just kind of sorting through the present right now, the effect on the future. But
How do you think this positions now Oregon State and Washington State? Obviously, they can't start spending this money, but in terms of trying to set up their future as best they can, where does this sort of leave them now, given that there are still some things that are being, possibly settled and some more court stuff to take care of? Where do they kind of sit after yesterday in terms of trying to figure out what's best for them and the path forward?
I think that the most likely outcome, which doesn't mean it's guaranteed at all, right? It's kind of like the future of the Pac-12 back when the most likely outcome was that they were going to stay together, but that didn't mean it was going to happen. And the most likely outcome, I think, with this situation, it's probably like a 65% chance, is that Washington State and Oregon State compete as a two-team conference next fall and winter, which the NCAA rules would allow them to do. And then there is a merger with the Mountain West, either for the fall of 25 or the fall of 26. Now, one key piece of this is the Mountain West TV deal with CBS and Fox expires after in the summer of 26. So the Mountain West is going to have to renegotiate anyhow, and it's possible that they could align a merger with the two Pac-12 schools, and do a new TV deal, do all that at once.
John Wilner with us from the Pac-12 hotline and many things Pac-12. Hey, John, this has been, as far as football, been a lot of teams up and down in the polls. And, I mean, the Heisman Trophy race with Penix and Nix. And has this been as good a year as you thought it would be, the early part of Colorado, Washington State? They've now faded. They play each other. Has it been what you thought, or maybe even more bizarre?
Well, I mean, it's certainly met expectations, and it was pretty highly anticipated out here. And to me, it's remarkable that, with all the focus on Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, those guys have played remarkably well, right? Nobody has really disappointed. Caleb Williams' numbers are better this year than they were last year when he won the Heisman. It's just his team's not very good, right? But it's been a fantastic year in terms of high-level competition and big games. And, there's another big game this week. So the conference is certainly, if it had a year like this any time in the last 2 or 3, the outcome of the conference might have been a little bit different. But there's been great football, and certainly the offenses are playing at an incredibly high level out here.
Thank you very much. Again, more with John Wilner here on 365 Sports.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask you.
Thanks, guys.
No, hold on, John.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask you about just the college football playoff and what's going on with that right now. Obviously, Kirk Schultz has some sway as far as that goes right now. Just how disruptive do you think his place in this whole thing could be as they try to figure out what they want to do and settle on for the plan in the next few years?
Yeah, well, I talked to Schultz over the weekend, and I didn't get the sense that he anticipates this being a big conflict with the other presidents that are on the board. Right? It just feels to me like he wants to make sure that Washington State and Oregon State aren't swept aside, and then he'll go along because it has to be right. Changes to the financial equation have got to be unanimous, and same with the format. I didn't get any kind of sense that he's anticipating it being a big problem.
John, this week against the Oregon State game, how much would that upset the apple cart if they, like you mentioned, the college football playoff? Would the Pac-12 be sweating if Oregon State gets that dub?
Well, I mean, it would complicate things for sure. I'm of the contention that if they got a one-loss champion, Oregon or Washington, that team's got a really good chance to get in. But it, of course, it depends on what else happens in the other leagues. Oregon State is very good. They're very good at home. They have played Washington tough over the years. I think it's going to be as hard a game for the Huskies to win as the Oregon game was, and that was a 3-point game decided on this field goal. So it should be a terrific matchup. The Pac-12 has certainly had their own approach to football over the years, and this would be another case of it. I do think that, it's not an elimination game necessarily for the conference, right? Oregon or Washington finishes 12-1. They got a really good chance to get in.
John, thank you. John Wilner, Pac-12 hotline, and covers a lot of the Pac-12 for numerous newspaper outlets, including the San Jose Mercury News. We appreciate that on 365 Sports.
Yeah, so just a lot still to be figured out there, but there is some leverage on the part of Washington State and Oregon State now. I mean, after the court battle, what you've got with the CFP, so we'll see what they're able to do with that. Feel like there's still much to sort through, obviously, but it could be taken care of with a settlement. And so, yeah, just what appetite do the other 10 have or for settling? What will they take to move on from this, and what will Oregon State and Washington State offer up to go ahead and take care of this so that they can move on and do whatever it is that they're going to do with their next wave of, landing a spot somewhere or creating a spot with the brand new Pac-12. But that's a nice step to take and continue this little journey yesterday. So that's in the rear view now, and you look forward to talks and what comes from that, and this stay at the end of the week and what comes from that, and then obviously the possible appeals that could result. So not over, not even close to being over, at least right now, although that could be taken care of quickly with a settlement. But it is a positive step forward in the whole story, and especially for the Beavers and the Cougars trying to figure out who they're going to be playing and where they're going to be playing and what they're going to be playing as a part of, and all of those mysteries that currently surround them because of the way the Pac-12 just completely wilted, which if we look back on that, I mean, we were right in the center of it, and it's still, I think, because college football is so, fast in terms of how the season just flies by, right? The offseason kind of drags on, and then the season gets here, and everything's kind of going on at once, and we were talking so much about realignment, and the season hits, but I mean, the whole conference dissolved. You didn't have just the Big 12 equation. You had the ACC come swooping in there at the end, like picking apart the rest of the bones. And then, it's just those two suddenly sitting there by themselves. And it was just boom, like that, after so much speculation and discussion about it. So I don't even think we got to really let that sink in because then games started. And now as it's starting to slow down a little bit, we can kind of get back into that, okay, this is the other bigger, issues that are currently there on the horizon. So it's all very interesting.
I have to imagine that the ACC adding Cal and Stanford to Oregon and Washington had to be like, you guys too?
Yeah, like y'all didn't think about that at this point?
We thought we could rely on you. Of the ones to keep this together, we thought we could rely on you. The guys who have the smartest, the nerds to figure out how much air travel costs, and they didn't want to do that.
What everybody else did is bus pulled up. They're like, you want to jump on?
Yep.
More money. Yep. We'll take it. It's gonna be longer rides, but beats what we got going on here right now. And so, it's just those two by themselves now looking around the room like the Will Smith Fresh Prince meme. But yesterday was a good day for them. So we'll see where it takes them.
We will come back with a couple of notes, including a picture that Chris Vanini put up on a great rivalry. We'll have that in the next segment. You want to talk about a rivalry? Toledo and Bowling Green, we'll get to that. Iowa State lineman Jared Hufford has UT fans all up in arms about being a punk, trash talking or whatever for something he said about UT in that game Saturday night. Houston head coach Dana Holgorsen is fired up because UCF is talking about being the Space City. We'll have that and more, a lot to get to. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco. Great customer service. Hey, if you like craft beer, they have the best selection of craft beer in Central Texas, and they're always turning that roster. It's winter time about to be, so those winter brews are out. So if you want those holiday beers, then you should absolutely go and grab them at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great customer service, a speedy drive-through window. You've heard me talk about it for years now, about that is the place that you need to go, whether it is craft beer, whether it is local craft bourbons. They've got it all there, and even if it's not that, if you need something else, believe me, they've got great selection for you no matter what your particular taste is, what kind of aficionado you are. Believe me, they can wet your whistle. They're at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, now with 2 locations to serve you.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
And
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
All right, a couple of things here. A couple of other notes in college football. Iowa State left guard Jared Hufford on Texas coming to town for the final time. It's going to be one heck of a farewell present. They are going to come in here on senior night in the dark. I don't think they really know what is going to be coming at them. We've beaten them 4 of the last 5 times at home. They don't have a good record here. They get all the 5-star recruits and have all the nicest stuff in the world, and they just think they don't stink. They're just humans, and that's how I see them. They're people that have such a high ego that need to be checked. Now, would I have said that? No. Should he have said it? If that's what he believes. But, and leave that up for a little bit if you don't mind, I have seen, and even on the chat room, Paxton, Sandra, Sam, UT Parking. Oh, my God, he's a punk. He'll pay. Tavondre Sprett's going to. Okay, but what's wrong with him saying? A lot of what he said actually is fact, but would I have said some of what he said? That's poking the bear.
Yeah, but I'm here for it. You know, like, go ahead. All the trash talk you want. Look, you can either back it up and win or you're going to lose. Like, again, sticks and stones, man. Like, so, you know, say what you want to. If it motivates you, if it works, if that's what, you know, Gerard Hufford has to say, you know, to feel that way, great. You know, Texas can just shut him up. They, you know, there was a time where Texas fans wouldn't even think about this. Like, it wouldn't even, that, you know, you're like the buzzing of flies to me, you know, go ahead and get away. That's how they would think about it. But he is right, 4 of the last 5 times at home. So that makes us a little more daunting. And go ahead, like, whatever, I'm here for it. Knock yourself out, both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's trash talk, and I think we normally embrace that in college football. It's funny to see the pearl clutchers when it's not their team or it's against them. It's like, oh, my gosh, and you know, he's a punk or whatever the reaction would be. But I don't know. I feel like Texas does plenty of talking as well when it's out on the field, though, and that's the difference is why feed them this chum in the water. I mean, it is a team with way more money, 5-star talent, all those things. They have had success recently in Ames against the Longhorns. But the whole part of, like, I don't think they know what's coming and playing in the dark and all of that. Like, I feel as though maybe you psyched yourself up a little bit too much. You didn't need to go there because now I think you're doing yourself a disservice and you're feeding ammunition to a team that doesn't really need it. And maybe you didn't even really have it. And now you're basically just stirring the pot, right? And so I don't know if that's the route I would have gone, but I'm also not 20 years old anymore. So that's the thing you've got to remember as well is like it's just a college kid who's getting ready for a big game and probably is put off by UT because it is a big departure from, Iowa State. And, I mean, he feels the way he feels. So if they can go out there and, back it up this weekend, then he should be the first guy lined up for a post-game interview to be able to,
absolutely,
to talk the talk. Is one thing, though. Walking the walk's another. And for them to walk the walk this weekend, that's going to be a huge challenge. So they sound prepared for it. I'd say the trash talking for afterwards. I wouldn't have motivated them like I think he probably has motivated them because are we talking about this game the way we are right now without that? Absolutely not. So do you think they're talking about that quote in Austin? Do you think that's printed out put on a wall somewhere? Probably. So I don't know if that's the route you wanted to take necessarily. But hey, you can have an opportunity this weekend to back up those words, and if you don't, then you will hear about those words, and you will hear plenty about not having lived up to those. So yeah, he put himself out there, and now we'll see how they play and who gets the last laugh here. But that adds a little spice to this weekend's game that otherwise wasn't there.
Paxton, you say it's not bothering you. You could care less, and yet you're the one that brought it up, so it did bother you, and it's okay. Tavondre Sweat will then meet this guy head on along with other different type of schemes or whatever, but to say that you don't care is not telling the truth. And I wouldn't have said it. If it was me, I wouldn't have said it. But it's not like other teams can't sit there and be, confident. I will go back to 1996 in the first ever Big 12 championship game. Two-time defending champion Nebraska looked unbeatable. James Brown, the quarterback at UT, riddled them and won the Big 12 title, and the week before said, we're going to go in there, we're going to win the game. What's the difference? You loved that because it was the guy that played for your team, and he backed it up. Now, he backed it up. Now this kid from Iowa State, you wonder, does that affect how he plays, or has that disappeared by Saturday?
Okay, here's the other thing. This is the last time that Texas will ever deign itself to play Iowa State. They will not ever, they're not going to set foot. Them and shoulder pads will never be in Ames, Iowa again. Ever again. The only way they would play is in a bowl game. Never again. When time ends and the necromancers walk the earth and it's just dust and old buildings, Texas will have not gone back to Iowa State after Saturday night. So again, if you're a Texas fan, you shouldn't really worry about it.
Yeah, this is really not that big of a deal. It's really not. It's a college kid talking trash. And yeah, Paul, you're right. Like they're probably fired up in Ames that this is the last opportunity to play Texas for the foreseeable future. Certainly the last probable time that they'll ever play in Ames, Iowa, to your point. So yeah, there's an element of that. This season really hasn't been that bad blood, that we thought it would be in terms of OU and Texas and all that. Like I know there's been some officiating calls that fans will immediately assume as a result of, the movement that's coming up after this season. And I'm sure there's been some stadiums that we haven't been there personally where there's been a lot of the trash talk. But like for the thoughts of what it would be like, it really hasn't been that bad. I mean, from y'all's point of view, has it?
No.
It seems like a normal season, and maybe there's just an extra, have fun in the SEC that you attach to the end of it. But for the most part, I feel like this has been a pretty calm,
completely different than when A&M and Missouri
were it's not like really super toxic or anything. Everybody just wants to beat the teams that are leaving, and it just so happens those are the two big brands that are walking out the door as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it's college football, it's sports, it's trash talk. I don't think there's anything that makes this guy a punk or anything like that. I think when you try to make it a personal attack, I think that you kind of lose sight, because I guarantee you a UT guy is going to make a play this weekend and jump up and
he's
act a fool and do all that. And somebody on the Iowa State side is going to be like, well, he's a punk. But if it was you, you'd be cool with it. So, the thing here is that Texas doesn't need to talk, though. And so Iowa State, this guy felt the need to. And like I said, he's talking the talk right now. Let's see if he walks the walk this Saturday. If not, we'll hear about it. If he does, if the Cyclones do, then we'll definitely hear about that as well. But you did add a little gasoline onto the fire that maybe wasn't the wisest decision, but we'll see, depending on how this game goes on Saturday.
So if they lose and he gets beat up and they don't run the ball, which I don't know if anyone can do that against Texas, and that's why if I was an offensive lineman, I would have probably been very aware of that. But if, in fact, they do win the game, he looks like even more of a superhero, because he said what he said prior to the game. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it as an offensive lineman going up against this Texas defensive line. Maybe a wide receiver should have been the guy. Like Jalen Noel, what else should have been the guy who was talking?
Look, I just say whatever you think works for you.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if that's what's going to get you fired up, if you know that, like, you are going to have to block Murphy and Sweat and, like, all those guys all night long, then – yeah, I'm gonna maybe, like, not only that, like, all right, sometimes I'm not gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to deal with Jalen Ford, who might
psych yourself up,
who might be the best linebacker in America. Like, all these things, they're just gonna keep coming at me and coming at me and coming at me. So you know what? Like, I need to, like,
yeah. I think, too, that he's just a college kid doing a media session and is probably not sitting there thinking of, like, what I say right now is going to be broadcast all over the world, and there's going to be 1,000 Texas fans that finding my Twitter and my Instagram to tell me what an idiot I am and how I'm going to regret those words. So, yeah, oftentimes, I mean, you're there and you're doing your thing and you don't realize that afterwards, like, oh, that blew up more than I thought. So maybe he planned on that. We're breaking it down to a level that's probably too broken down. But, yeah. We'll see this weekend. Somebody will get the last laugh in this series between these two teams, and maybe it will be him, or maybe it will be Tavondre Sweat or someone else.
So here's from Chris Vanini. Reminder that Toledo Stadium feature an actual rocket that is angled to land at the Bowling Green 30 or 50-yard line. Your rivalry could never.
I like that kind of spite.
I love it.
I like it.
I mean, that is aimed, apparently, the angle, the velocity of whatever that would eventually take off as a rocket right at the 50-yard line of Bowling Green, and everybody loves it.
I've been to Bowling Green University, and that rocket wouldn't take out much.
Man, just state of Oklahoma, state of Ohio, or at least Bowling Green, Ohio. You just
come at me. I've been to your crap town. I had to be there for 5 days. So,
oh, my God.
Yeah, I've been there.
What's your hometown?
Fort Myers, Florida.
Oh, no. Where were you born?
Memphis.
You think a lot of people think that's the greatest
I've been back to Memphis. There's good and bad parts to it.
All right, there's good and bad parts in every place.
Yeah, but nobody can make fun of Waco, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on. This place is pristine.
All right.
Sandy beaches.
Later,
mountains.
we'll have the Bednarik and also Nagurski Award finalists. We'll have that for you later in the show. Tim Brando in an hour. Ricky Thompson around the corner. We'll also hear from Chris Williams on Iowa State, and we'll ask him about the quote from the player on UT. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the whole family getting set for holiday season. The 2021 Chevrolet Suburban High Country, a powerful 6.2-liter V8 for only $63,990. Experience the luxury at the finest of 2019 BMW X7 xDrive 50i, low miles, massaging seats, and rear entertainment, yours for only $55,780. We have an excellent value there about luxury of the 2014 Lexus GS350 that only has 45,000 miles on it for $23,990. Come by for a test drive today. Also, you heard it right, 10% off all new Ram 2500 and 3500s in stock. Stop by Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, CEO and General Manager Ted Teague, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. This segment with former Baylor wide receiver and Baylor's sideline analyst Ricky Thompson is sponsored by Alliance Bank Central Texas, where customers have confidence that their financial needs are in good hands with 2 locations in Waco, on Bosque Boulevard and on Archway Drive off Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com.
Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, sideline reporter for Baylor Radio, with us on 365 Sports. And Ricky, your thoughts about what now? Because there's 2 games left. Obviously, TCU coming up Saturday, and a team that they've struggled beating even when they've been much better. Charlie Brewer got them once, obviously 61-58, but it's been few and far between. What now? And do you consider TCU a rival?
Sure. I think so. 90 miles apart. Nobody likes anybody involved in that series either way. So, sure, I think it is. And hopefully that alone will bring some inspiration to a team late in the season who, frankly, doesn't have a lot left as far as goals. Bowl's out of the question now for sure. Probably has been for a couple of weeks. And coming off a game, which, by the way, K-State, I'm still not so sure they're not the best team in the league. That's a really good football team. I think when you give somebody like that 3 scores, you're in big trouble. But yes, I think this game's a rivalry. I think it'll be treated that way. And with that, that always gives you some optimism, because how many times have we seen a game like this that doesn't go exactly like you think it should, and happens more often than not. So I think with that, that's what you've got to put into these players, and hopefully they put it into themselves, that this is an important game, 90 miles apart, somebody you're going to play every year from here on out, no matter how this league and the schedule presents itself going forward. You're going to play TCU every year.
Ricky, you've been in all kind of different rivalry type games, or your season at the end and playing for different things. For Baylor, they're playing for pride right now and a play spoiler. Against TCU in particular, if they do win this game, TCU can't go to a bowl. So they have to win their next two to be able to do that. How much of that would be a motivating factor?
Well, I think it's a factor. I don't think there's anything that Baylor fans would like much more at this point in the season than at least knocking TCU out of a bowl game. I'd like it personally. I think it'd be great. So I hadn't thought about that particular motivation, Paul, but I think, and I bet that there's been discussion of that in some regard on the river as they practice this week. And yeah, that would be a really nice way to end a disappointing season, to knock those guys out of a bowl game. And I tell you what, if they can, again, just push these games into the second half, you never know. And they're going to have to play mistake-free. Obviously, TCU runs an offense in the spread with Briles that has given us some fits. We have finally put three corners in the game, have a corner on that inside slot receiver, which makes all the difference in the world. In fact, last week, guys, we had three freshman cornerbacks in the game at the same time. Not redshirt freshmen, true freshmen at the same time.
Ricky, isn't that kind of, I guess, one of the areas that you would look at with what kid Aranda, we run it back and see what can possibly be done next year, the young defensive backs. I know, with the portal era, though, it's hard to really solidify anything and feel like you can have everybody back. But the tight end room, would that be another group? How would you kind of look at, if you were to take away the positives from this year and say, like, here's what we can build around if it were to stay as is, knowing full well it's not exactly how it works. But would you say the secondary and the tight ends, where would you kind of look to start building?
Well, I would absolutely start secondary-wise. I think these kids have proven they can play. We've seen some freshman mistakes in secondary, which when you're 18 years old, you're going to get beat. I've seen a lot of senior fifth-year quarterbacks get beat too. So, yes, I think that's something that you really build on, and I think that's where this NIL mess comes in, guys. I think that hopefully that's already started, that process of retaining these guys, make sure they're coming back, and I would fully expect that Baylor jumps into the portal pretty heavy this year. I think, quarterback, you've got a couple of guys back there. I think you're always looking. I do think Blake is a kid that, considering what he's been through this year, has played very well, and I'm proud of the way he played. But the tight end group, even with Dabney leaving, I think's got a chance to be really good. Receiver, I think there's some work to be done there. There's some kids there that can play. They just hopefully will develop further. And obviously it's hurt for Keytron Jackson to be out the last couple of weeks. But there are some things to build on. I think overall you just build on the fact that a lot of your better players are just kids. They're young guys, and you've got, 9 seniors that are really playing. That's not many.
Ricky, do you notice anything with the coaching staff different given how tense things are going to be around the next couple of weeks?
Not dramatically. I think that's one thing about Aranda. You don't see a lot of up and down with him. I will tell you, I thought post-game at K-State, you could really tell he was disappointed. I think he was disappointed in the way they played, a little bit disappointed. I don't know so much effort, I think maybe, but you could really get the feeling with Coach Aranda that one hit him pretty hard. I don't think he expected that. I'm talking about the way the game went school-wise. I don't think he expected that at all. So that's something that the coaches have to overcome too, because I tell you, that does permeate through a team when they can tell a coaching staff is having trouble staying motivated. But I don't think that's going to be the case, and I'm really glad it's TCU and not somebody else at this point that would not be considered rivalry at all. And I'm not knocking Iowa State or Kansas or somebody like that, but the fact that you're playing a team that you don't like very much, I think the timing's pretty good.
Ricky, I don't know if you've been asked this before. We asked JJ. He wasn't thrilled with this new name of the rivalry between Baylor and TCU. I'm sure you've seen what they're going to call this. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Probably the same as everyone else. I didn't like it, but I didn't pick it. So it is what it is. I don't know how in the world they came up with it, but you know, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a name for the game and to have some kind of trophy, whatever it may be. The name is what it is. If we win, I don't care what they call it.
There you go. Yeah, you know,
probably wouldn't have picked that one.
It's how I'm going to approach Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, no matter how long it stays that. And I'm not going to call this game the Battle of the Blue Bonnets, the Blue Bonnet Battle. Yeah. It doesn't matter because I'm not calling it that.
Well, you know what? I probably agree with you on both cases.
The rivalry it is. Yeah.
I think that's the name of it, and I think let's just call it "We Don't Like Each Other" Bowl, and let's go.
Yeah, and by the way, it's Baylor. Surely there have been way too many times when they were probably as good or better, and it didn't matter. That is a thorn in their side. TCU usually finds a way. No matter 61-58 will live forever, but man, have they lost some games against what looked like an inferior team.
Yeah, and Ricky, to that. Ricky, I was going to say to that point. I mean,
last year it wasn't an inferior team, but man, what we had that game, we score late, go up 28-20, hold them with a 2-point conversion. All you got to do is get a first down, it's over, and you beat a team that's 10-0. So you're right. It just seems it's always something.
Yeah, Rick, I was going to say, I got the feeling that that's still a scar, that game last year, when hearing Aranda talk about like how that gutted them. And obviously they've been on a little bit of a slide since then. That wasn't the start of the slide per se, but that game feels like it left a little bit of a mark that may not ever go away for those that were involved, especially in the coaching. Well, I mean, I guess the players too, but I just got that sense from Aranda. Do you sense that as well, just how excruciating that loss was?
Yeah, I think so. I just... When you think about it, that was in the middle of a streak that was started not very good football and quite a few losses. I guarantee if you win that game and you pull it out, a lot of things end up differently and probably are even different right now. You beat a team that was ranked in the top 5 and 10-0. That changes things. I mean, that would have been a huge, huge win, probably comparable to the 61-58. Not a championship year, but to beat a team ranked that highly and really outplay them that day and let them go down and score late with the field goal clock running out, run out as time expires and kick it. And man, I was standing back there. That dude was right down the middle. There wasn't any doubt, but I was deflated. So you can imagine those players.
Yeah, it was a huge win that allowed TCU to do the rest of what they did, despite the loss to Kansas State. Sets up the win against Michigan, despite what happened to Georgia. But it was a miraculous year for them, an unbelievable, magical year. But yeah, that kind of was one of those. I always thought that they never recovered from Kansas State, like basically bullying them. But yeah, that one there, woo, that was a low moment with the last-second field goal. And for them to do it at Waco and Baylor at McLean Stadium like Callahan had done it back in 2014 was kind of almost a memory of that too.
Yeah, and you know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you guys remember, Patterson was still up there. They had us down 9-0 at the half. We looked terrible and came back and kicked a 51-yard field goal last play of the game to tie it at 9 and then win it in double, triple overtime. That's one of those where they're feeling like, let's go jump off the top row of the stands when this is over. I think maybe that's the way we felt last year after that one.
Ricky, thank you very much for your time. Baylor Radio sideline reporter Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I just got the sense that that game last year is just never going to go away. It's going to be one of those that 20 years down the line, you're talking with your coaching buddies about your best wins and your toughest losses, and that's going to be one that everybody on the staff brings back up and circles around to is, man, you'll never believe we had TCU down. They were unbeaten, headed to the playoff, and then they put together this miraculous field goal with time ticking down to walk off on our own. I mean, that was brutal. That was as much of a grabbing victory from the jaws of defeat as I've seen in decade plus of being like live and in person covering college football. And I've seen some, obviously some excruciating losses, but that one is right there near the very top of things. And I think with the name, I was listening to the players yesterday. Everybody's goofing on it. Everybody's goofing on it. Yeah. Rando joked about it. Nicky Collin joked about it. And then you get into the players yesterday, and it's interesting how quickly we get old. Is we still bringing up 61-58. You guys know that was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It's 10 years ago. 10 years next year ago. And so there's Kyler Jordan. He's being interviewed like, what do you think about the TCU rivalry? He's like, well, I grew up in Lubbock, so I watched a lot of Tech games. And it's cool. Like, I get there's history there. But, like, he doesn't think of, like, Bryles versus Patterson and how hateful that got and how ugly that got and how nasty that rivalry was. Like, that is so far in the rear view. Now, I know the rivalry itself has been around way before that and will go on way after that as well. But
119 times. Yeah.
It's not the heated battle that it was at that stage, because TCU's just kind of dominated from here on out. But even the guys who don't have skin in the game or those who do, everybody can agree it's kind of a lame name. It's kind of a lame name for this rivalry. No matter what stake you have in it, everybody is in agreement on that.
I hate it for the student governments that got involved, because they surely, I'm sure, were trying to do what they thought was best based on what the task was.
What you also hear in these situations, you need at least one person in the room or a couple that can be the ones, like when you give the list of here's what we've got, that you can be like, listen, Blue Bonnet Battle's not going to play. Like some sort of expert, like it's not going to play. Yeah. Like it's not going to go over well. Let's go back to the drawing board and redo this. But also those things when you're dealing with student governments and groups like that, we don't know how long that took. And then they finally just like, let's just vote on Blue Bonnet Battle and see, all right, it passes 10-7. We're moving on. So, but yeah, those are the things, and I
don't get why student government's in charge of naming this 100-year-plus old rivalry and just flipping it like that.
I would leave that to the professional marketing departments, although they can make their mistakes too. I mean, like
sure.
you've seen plenty, like the Big 12 had was paying a lot of money for somebody to come up with one true champion, and then,
like the tiebreaker that was changed today that we'll get to in a moment.
I also think that you should have at least one person who is really immature and like can see the fart humor and everything. That way you don't accidentally stumble across something that people are going to giggle at.
Yeah, I agree, man. And that is one where maybe you don't really get into the fart humor here because it's just Blue Bonnet Battle, but it's like even Battle of the Blue Bonnet sounds better than just Blue Bonnet Battle.
Yeah,
it's just so
the battle
generic.
For the Blue Bonnet.
Yeah, like the for and the makes a huge difference. It's like it rolls off the tongue, but just Blue Bonnet Battle. It's like you just had a column A and column B of just names, and you just drew the lines like you were saying earlier, and it's like that works. Yeah. Alliteration, okay, cool. Blue Bonnet Battle.
It used to be called the Astro Blue Bonnet Bowl in Houston, and that now basically has become the Texas Bowl down in Houston.
That's the bowl game.
Yeah.
But the bowl game even still makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's just there's all
I love
these.
The name of the Astro Blue Bonnet Bowl.
Yeah, but like it just like it didn't. And again, if you told me Blue Bonnet Battle, I'm watching an HGTV show about who's got the best wildflower arrangements in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, they would just go to some lady like, listen, Daisy May's got a good group, but I really think that my yard's better this year. Yeah, that's what I think of.
Roger Dodger saying it was named after the butter. It was not. Hey, we got a break. Scott Drew, national championship men's basketball coach, will join us around the corner. Chris Williams covers Iowa State. He will join us. And Tim Brando at 5. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. Dr. Rob Maxey traded a couple of texts with him yesterday. They will find out the evidence that your doctor needs or you need too because something is hurting you that pains, that shuts you down. It's got this kind of almost chronic or something that has happened recently. You twisted a knee or you twisted your back or something may have been ripped, torn, or shredded, and an MRI will help you find out how to then, what do you do next? Is it surgery? Is it therapy? Is it both? That is what they can help you do because they find the evidence of what hurts you in your body. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. Dr. Rob Maxey and Company, $497 or less every single time. And that's more than half of what the average MRI cost at $1,100 at IdealMRI.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Real quickly, the Big 12 tiebreaker regarding step 1 of multiple team ties in the conference tiebreaker procedure. In an event of a multiple team tie, head-to-head wins takes precedence. If all the tied teams are not common opponents, the tied team that defeated each of the other 2 earns the championship berth. No changes to any rules regarding the Big 12 football tiebreaker procedures, which were agreed upon prior to the season that went into effect in August of this year. So there you are with that. They didn't change the tiebreaker rules in 2014. They just stood there and went by the original bylaws. Scott Drew joins us, Baylor men's basketball coach. Late night game last night. I got to tell you, man, I thought the atmosphere, the women's game against Utah at the beginning, what a great win for Nikki and company, and then yours as well. It seems like this student body's locked in right now.
Well, the students were awesome last night. You know, normally the later the better for them. A couple yawns from our coaches. I think I saw you yawning. Mac Rhodes might have had a yawn in there, but the students were definitely ready to go. And later, it is better for them. If we could have probably played that at 11 or 12 at night, they would have even been loud.
Yeah, well, maybe with some of the West Coast teams coming in next year, Scott, you can just do that. It works out well for both of you. They're on their time, you're on student time. You know, just have a cup of coffee before the game. You'll be all right.
Well, I guess the key is to make sure we get the win. So the women started it out in a great manner, fashion. Huge win for them over a top 5 opponent. So excited for Nikki and her staff and the team. And then obviously we shot it a lot better than we did last game. So I'm excited about that.
Your team and the way that you're able to kind of roll through the bench right now before you always do this where you kind of find your 8 or 9 guys that you want in the rotation, but you've got some young guys that maybe are kind of performing over where they would be normally this year. How do you feel about your depth starting out?
Well, I think first of all, let's talk about our depth, and we feel real confident with any of the 11, and that's a luxury because we all know that during the course of the season, you love to go through without an injury, without a sprained ankle, without any illnesses. But normally that happens, and you have to have people ready to step in, number one. And then number two, in college, you practice more than you play. And how your team improves is by quality in practice. So iron sharpens iron, and that's something that we believe in. And the deeper our teams have been, the better we've gotten throughout the course of the year because of that.
Scott, is there anything particular, and you're never going to be satisfied unless you're cutting down the nets at the very end of the year, but is there anything on defense that you feel like must get better?
Oh, well, in the beginning of the year, everything has to get better because if you don't, you're not going to be where you want to go. We often equate it to starting to climb on a mountain, and if you're not going up, you're getting past. So we're constantly trying to get better in all fashions and facets, and the offenses and defenses we face will get better as they scout us and also as they get better at what they're doing. So with us defensively, right now we're top 25 in Ken Palm Analytics, top 25 offensively. So that's a good start. Now we just have to get better.
Coach, you got some newcomers that everybody's getting to know here early on, and Jacoby Walter, obviously, in that first game just burst onto the scene, but last night, Jaden Nunn, I know you probably don't love the turnovers necessarily, but the points and the threes and all of that. Tell us about Jaden Nunn and just your experiences with him thus far, his role on this team, and what you're expecting of him.
Well, Jaden is somebody that comes to practice with a smile every day, and anybody that is an energy giver, a great teammate, you enjoy coaching. And he wants to get coached. He wants to get better. He listens well. And this group as a whole has been very good with that. Things that we've suggested, said, they've been very receptive to and really tried hard to get and do what we ask of them. So that's a blessing. They like one another. So, as you know, at the end of the day, if you like who you work with, you're going to perform better. But with Jaden, he's somebody that really has a tremendous ability to get to the free throw line, and that's something that this team as a whole has done a great job of, and hopefully that continues. At the same time, Jaden is outstanding on the other end of the court. And I know this summer when our vets came back and scrimmaged us, they all really appreciated that and liked that about him, is how hard he goes after it on the defensive end as well.
Scott, I was going to ask you about that specifically, and he's got a skill that, look, there are guys who can make steals and get them and be alert, but there are then the level of guys, and you had one with Davion, who can just – they know exactly when to swipe their hand at the ball as it's bouncing off the floor. Is that something – I mean, I don't want to just use kind of a tired term, but is it like having the force where you just see the ball and like that differently? Because he is really particularly good at that.
Well, I think great athleticism, great quickness, but defensively you got to have a toughness, a grit about you, and he has that. And he has a motor, and if you look back, Davion, Mark Vital, some of our best defenders, they play with a motor, they play with an aggression, they play with a toughness, and obviously they had an athleticism that allowed them to do that. So those are all reasons why he is a successful defender. And with that, as you know, if people have to start their offense, it's kind of like a great pass rusher. If you're constantly putting pressure on the quarterback and he's throwing it early, it's not on time, on target. And when people start their offense further out, a lot of times they might be open, but by the time the ball's delivered or where it's delivered, it allows the other defenders to make up time from getting around screens or whatnot. So really important at that point guard. We put him on the point guard some, and he's been really efficient there.
Scott Drew, men's basketball coach, with us on 365 Sports. Is it still kind of a delicate mix when it comes to the minutes for John Machachua? Is that still something you're working through? Is it cardio? Is it still not really sure about his leg?
Well, I think Jonathan, first of all, is a lot better player than he was last year. He's lost weight. He's more athletic. At the same time, we're really blessed with Eve has really played well, and Josh has really improved. So you have three bigs that are all more than capable, and right now it's been better that we play one at a time for us as a team, and hence you have one on the court and then two off. And John is somebody that was, remember, Defensive Player of the Year the year that he got injured, and that was based on a half a season. So he's done an amazing job in recovering from the injury. But at the same time, as you know, there's nobody in college basketball playing with the same condition he has right now. So he's done an amazing job to get back to where he is today. And it gives us a great mix and a great blend now with Josh and Eve. And we see who's playing best and go with that.
How do we feel about the haircut for John? I mean, it's a departure.
Well, I can tell you, sometimes when people don't cut the hair, they might get an extra 2 or 3 inches. But I tell you, Jonathan is just first class in whatever he does, and he's going to win every interview.
Absolutely,
with the way he presents and carries himself. And again, behind the scenes, why we're successful year in and year out is because of the leadership we have, and John's a big part of that this year as well. And every day, Josh, Eve, and John all get better competing against each other.
No question. Ashley Hodge brought up that there had been critique about the end of the half success, but for a couple of games in a row, it looks like you've executed great at the end of the half. And what is your philosophy there?
Players make plays. So I know Ray J's had a couple great ones, and a lot of times at the end of the clock, people take a bad shot, and he's done a great job in getting the ball to an open person that is a higher percentage shot than trying to force it himself. And as far as when we go and what we want in the last second shot, the team has executed what we'd like, because at the end of the day, we want the last shot. We don't want to give somebody else the last shot.
Great start to the season. The Auburn game was unbelievably intense. You have Oregon State down the road. That's next. And then Seton Hall, Michigan State, Duke. Man, what a great run. You're going to know, as you always do, who you are by the time
trying to ruin my day off?
Yeah.
You're trying to ruin my day.
Well, how important, though, that opening game with Auburn, because that was a just absolutely great basketball game to watch. Reminded me of almost a tournament atmosphere. To play that, how many people play that in game one, especially on a neutral site?
Well, first, it was a great platform for Baylor University, the Big 12 Conference. And then going into it, you had two teams that have won 3 championships since 21 in the SEC and the Big 12, 5 times been ranked number 1, both been to the Final Four. And the concern I had was they returned 5 of their top 7, and that's a big advantage early in the year with us only having one player that returned playing over 20 minutes a game. So really pleased with obviously the outcome of that game, but being down late showed a lot of grit, character, toughness from our guys, and we learned a lot about each other that night, I thought.
Thank you very much for your time, Scott. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys for all you do. Have
Baylor
a blessed day.
men's basketball national championship head coach Scott Drew with us on 365 Sports. I want to go back to the Big 12 tiebreaker thing. We'll have Chris Williams on Iowa State in the next segment, then Tim Brando also there. But, Craig, let's go back to the tiebreaker. Brett McMurphy had that out there. We knew this was coming, just didn't know exactly how they were going to handle it.
Well, I kind of need you to kind of go through it again because I didn't even really catch this since we were rolling right into Scott Drew. What was the major change that was made to this? I mean, I know that the comma caused a lot of problems, right? That if not part of the equation, but...
Well, here, let me read it from Brett McMurphy. Tiebreaker regarding step 1 of the multiple team ties and conference tiebreaker procedure. In event of a multiple team tie, head-to-head wins take precedent. If all of the teams, tied teams, are not common opponents, the tied team that defeated each of the other tied teams earns a championship berth. Now, the rule before that, and in the chat room, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure you will, that's fine. There was a rule that if there was a 3-way tie, but you did not play the other two, is like or if there's a 3-way tie and the other two lost to a third team, there was a way for the head-to-head not to come into play. The way the bylaws were written now, that will matter. And there was a way that could benefit, let's say, Oklahoma State and or Oklahoma based on the fact they had played head-to-head. Texas will not play Oklahoma State in the regular season. Texas did play Oklahoma in the regular season. But if there's a chance that a lot of teams played each other, but not everybody, that there was a possibility that a head-to-head part of the bylaw did not create who was going to end up being a 1 seed or a 2 seed.
Yeah, so that would have been quite the mess that they had on their hands to not have head-to-head matter at the top of the list of trying to sort through it. So, yeah, now head-to-head matters more like it should. And so if you had Oklahoma State, I think, is an example that's been given quite a bit. They've beaten Oklahoma State and Kansas State. They played them. And so since they played both of them, even though Oklahoma didn't play Kansas State,
right,
that would give Oklahoma State the nod because they played both of them that they're tied with, and they've beaten both of them. So the fact that the other two haven't played doesn't really matter because Oklahoma State had beaten both of them. So that makes sense. I mean, if you're in a 3-way tie and you've got head-to-heads to use, the fact that wouldn't be the first thing you go to is perplexing. And so I do think just a wrong comma created a lot of this confusion. Mm-hmm. And the Big 12 maintains that they're not really changing anything. I think they're clarifying because I do think the idea of changing at this point does come across very suspicious of you can't change the rules with 2 weeks to go in the freaking regular season. What is that about? You can't do that. And to your point, they should have done that back when TCU and Baylor were in their situation. But now, it's made clearer. And that is the way, in my estimation, that it should work, is if there's a 3-way tie and you are a team that's beaten the other two head-to-head, you should be the team that goes. Well, and that should be the way it is.
Bracket Cat, thank you. That sentence you just read is completely a new addition. Wet Blanket, there was a way for teams to backdoor their way in. This stopped that. From Roy Melton, the highest common opponent, so OU would be out against Oklahoma State. And if Iowa State, if they were all tied because OU can't play themselves. Metal, so then he's talking about something else. But Connie Mermis, the problem isn't the change, it's when the change is being made.
Yeah, absolutely.
And shame on the Big 12. Listen, I don't care who it affects or who it helps or who it hurts. I don't think you do this unless you're trying to say there was a decimal point or a comma. But this does eliminate what could have been a disaster. Somebody in a three-way tie who had beaten both the other teams, but because of the way it's set up, they may not get in. That makes zero sense whatsoever. I learned that at SFA when it came to learning how to put tournaments and stuff like that together.
Yeah, well, I'm glad people are keeping tabs on what is brand new from that, because I haven't, sat and compared the rules before and after. But the one thing I'll agree on is, glad they're getting it right, so to speak. But the main takeaway from this for me is, should have figured this out beforehand. Should have had somebody spot the mistake or assumed that this was a possibility, and it just should never have gotten to this point. It's just a bad handling of the situation that shouldn't have ever been a story and should have just been taken care of. And so whatever reason that happened, you can't have a mistake like that in the future. So I'm glad they're trying to fix it. But the biggest thing is, I agree, you can't do that 2 weeks to go in the season all of a sudden, and especially given the circumstances surrounding the Big 12 right now and the involvement of Texas and Oklahoma, it does lead to tinfoil hat guy of like, they're trying to screw OU or, something along those lines. Now, that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you don't want that perception out there. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want that to be a side discussion, even if it's not legitimate at all. So, it could have been handled a lot better. That's for dang sure. Hopefully it's sorted out now, but you can't be changing rules and changing language with 2 weeks to play in the season.
Eventually, there's a chance that you get to this, and this is the way it is, I think, even in the pros, you get to a chance of a common opponent. Even that if everything's equal, then you get to what is a common opponent. Remember the controversy in 2008? It came down to Texas beat OU, OU beat Tech, and then Tech beat Texas. Remember that Michael Crabtree, Graham Harrell throw? But in the end, it came down to who was the highest-rated team in the BCS standings. OU was. No matter the argument, that doesn't mean everybody liked it. But that was the case based on the bylaws of the Big 12.
And I say they got it right.
I don't think TCU or Baylor fans will ever think they got it right in 14. Ever, no matter what. And a head-to-head then did not matter. It did not matter.
That Oklahoma, Texas Tech, like Texas Tech, they got beat so badly by Oklahoma on that Saturday night in Norman that they had no argument to stand on. And then the win over Texas was the miraculous Crabtree catch. That's a moment that will live forever. But, yeah, they got dusted by OU, and that ruined their opportunity there. But I know that still burns for some Texas fans I know.
All Texas
It's not like the Colt got hurt, we'd have beat Bama thing that lingers all these years later, but I think it's up there in terms of Texas feeling as though if they would have gotten the nod, that they would have done a better job of going and winning the
year before 09, yeah.
And would have won it. And so you're potentially looking at back-to-back titles. If that works out, obviously Texas fans are going to feel they'd have won everything. But, 3 titles in 6 years would have been what he was looking at. Mm-hmm. 3 national title appearances in 6 years, or what is it, 05, 6, 7, 8, 5 years was what it would have been.
08, and 09.
Yeah, so that changes history pretty greatly, but we'll never know.
And if you're a Texas fan, I could see why you still see fire to this day on how that went down.
And
I just said that, by the way. I know she's not listening anymore, but I did just say that, Sandra.
The big issue with 14 was they were trying to they thought they had gamed the system when that was the weird part about it, is they thought we have 2 good teams, because Bob Bowlesby was not trying to screw one or the other. He was trying to say that both of them should have been in.
You will never convince Baylor fans of that.
No, but that's really what he was trying to do. And to do that, he had to build up TCU a little bit more because they took that loss to Baylor. So in that strategy, what he wound up doing was giving a committee that has a job that is near impossible to do, that to make 100% sense. They needed one excuse to keep some power conference out, because it felt to me at the time that nobody had thought hey, there's 5 power conferences and there's only 4 seats at this table. So we're going to leave somebody out. And it didn't feel like it until that day where they're like,
Yeah. I mean, I know what he was trying to pull off, but I mean, there was zero chance that they were going to get both of those teams in that thing.
Yeah.
And then Ohio State wins the way that they did. And then that was an easy choice for the committee because they're like, yeah, we'll just take Ohio State and they'll sell it out and we'll get TV ratings and all of that. They didn't want to take a Baylor or a TCU if they didn't have to back then, especially early on in the playoff. And so,
it was the first year.
was made a very easy decision for them because they could just say, well, their commissioner doesn't even know who the guy is.
Yeah.
And so that was an easy thing, an exit strategy for the playoff and their decision-making. But that was pretty simple. I mean, I know they lost to West Virginia, but they played. The 2 teams played. They finished with the same record.
Yep.
And they played, and there was a winner, and that will never make sense that you just didn't go forward with that clarification and just ride with it.
The bylaws said otherwise, and Bowlesby jumped down my throat one time when I asked him about it. He goes, I take that, whatever he said, with all due respect. When we come back, Chris Williams covers Iowa State. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They've got tons of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on, and they've been that for many, many years. And Richard Carr himself, that's not just the name of a dealership, but the man behind the name. He is somebody that a lot of people in the Waco area, the people that work for him and the people that go and buy cars over there, he's somebody that they can count on as well. A great man with a great dealership and great prices and offers right now on a variety of different vehicles, but it all depends on what you're looking to do. I mean, are you looking to get in a brand new car, a used car, pre-owned car, I should say? You're looking to get body work done? They can take care of all those things, but right now it is a bit of a mess out in front of the dealership. Highway 6, for those familiar, is all torn up. Looks like a war zone out there, but you still can find your way over to Richard Carr, and when you do, they've got great deals like the GMC Sierra, a truck that has it all, power and strength and a stunning interior. And right now they have holiday savings on cars and trucks happening right now with Thanksgiving coming up just next week. Take advantage of the great holiday savings. Qualified buyers can get 0.9% financing, no payments until 2024 on 2023 GMC Sierras in stock. And if you're military or first responder, you can also save an additional $500. There are some restrictions that apply, so you can talk to the dealership for more details there if you're looking to get into a brand new GMC Sierra. They've also got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well, and they've got the award-winning service department, so you can explore those further by giving them a phone call, visiting the website, or heading on over to the dealership. They've been in business for 24 years in Central Texas, and over that time, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Chris Williams covers Iowa State, Cyclone fanatic. He joins us on 365 Sports. Iowa State, despite ups and downs, but they have been hot enough to put themselves in position. Saturday's game is big. Texas leads the Big 12 outright. The Horns come to Ames to take on the Cyclones. I want to start with this, Chris. Iowa State offensive lineman Jared Hufford made some comments about Ames and Iowa State at home against Texas, and that got a lot of play, of course, as you could imagine, around college football. Texas fans in our chat room have been kind of interested in that. Did that bring up anything at all in Ames?
Not really. Not that I've been aware of. I mean, listen, I don't think it's any secret that Iowa State fans don't like Texas, and why, who could blame them? How many, you guys know, as Baylor guys, I mean, God, how many times over the years has these schools had a proverbial gun to their head because of Texas, right? Like, so, I mean, if there's a Texas fan that doesn't understand why an Iowa State player wouldn't like him, I can't really help you. I mean, and I would also add that if Steve Sarkisian's team needs that to get fired up to play to go win a national championship, then what does that say too? I think it's fun in the middle of the week. I don't think it'll matter come Saturday.
So what's this week been like, Chris? I mean, what kind of an anticipation level is there for this game, and how much of the backdrop of the fact this is likely the last time? This is the last time for the Longhorns in Ames, and then there's some stakes involved as well. How much of a build-up do you feel for this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think with like the fans and stuff, it certainly is a big deal, the Texas angle. I don't necessarily – I don't know. I think with the program, it's definitely more, hey, you guys have a chance to win a Big 12 championship still. It's an outside chance, but it's still a chance. And for this program that had the unfortunate gambling thing in the off season, and then, there's a long off season, guys, with that, all the realignment. It's just been for a young team, I was doing my numbers this week, guys, and Iowa State's going to have like 20 starters back next year. So, like, they're really young, like the amount of freshmen and sophomores playing on this group. So they've been through a lot. You got to realize a lot of those guys who are out with the gambling stuff, it opened up spots, including the quarterback spot, for younger guys to step in. So I think they're focused on that. The rest of it, Texas is not going to get a warm welcome in here, and why should they? Like that. When you do this, when you guys know with realignment, when it happens, this is part of it, and. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for Texas and Oklahoma. They made their bed, and they're going to be cashing checks here coming forward in the SEC, and good for them. I just don't have a lot of sympathy when, the fans are going to boo you. Like, yeah, of course they will. Like, just kind of part of the deal, and they will get a rude. They will not. I'm sure the Iowa State fans will not be kind. You also have to think of it this way, too, guys. Like, there's an extra chip on Iowa State fans' shoulders towards this stuff because there's just, not the richest fan base. It's very blue collar. You're going to see a lot of Carhartt overalls on Saturday night. And it's just different. And I love going to Austin. I'm not, nothing personal against them. I'm going to really miss making that trip. It's a phenomenal stadium, great tradition. But Iowa State fans see themselves as the polar opposite of what a Texas fan is. If that's fair or not, I have no idea. But they don't, that is just kind of how it is. And they've thought that way for a really long time. It was kind of like we had this cool Big 8 thing going, and then all these Texas schools came in, and right, and it was mutually beneficial for television. We all know all that, but I'm just putting you in the mind of the, Story County farmer that's going to be sitting there with a few bush lights deep on Saturday night. Yeah, they'll be fired up.
Chris, do you expect to see Iowa State throw a little bit more in this game than maybe they normally would, given Texas is so good against the run, but that secondary is susceptible? That's I think Iowa State has learned that while it can be an effective run team, it's got to pass first. That's been the case against every defense this year, let alone this Texas front that's just, if I was Jared Hufford, I may have looked across the line before I made those comments.
Right.
Right. But, I mean, I think Iowa State in that loss to Texas, I think they got a little complacent. I think that, they had run the ball fairly well in the games prior to that. And I think that they thought they could go in there and establish the run early and do all that. And they couldn't have been more wrong. This is a team that needs to pass first, and then hopefully it spreads out a defense and that you can run. And I would fully expect, Iowa State to come out and throw it. It's not Matt Campbell like to throw it 50 times in a game, but I think they're certainly going to have to. That's how I break down this game, guys. It's just up front, Iowa State's really going to be, I think, in trouble both ways. So you've got to find ways to, change this thing up a little bit. Iowa State's going to have to win turnovers. You're going to have to be perfect on special teams. And I think you turn your young quarterback loose. You've got some weapons at wide receiver. You might have the best freshman tight end in all of college football, and you're going to have to let them. And then hopefully, with that, you can start running the ball a little bit more in the second half. That's got to be the game plan.
Chris, when it comes to that passing game, the young quarterback there who's had to grow up a lot this season, Rocco Becht, put up good numbers with the top freshman passer in the country. Just what have you seen as far as his development, the confidence, and just sort of the feel around him when it comes to this team and what they're doing moving forward?
I love him. He reminds me so much of Brock Purdy, and I know that's not fair. I'm not saying he'll be what Brock is in the NFL, but he's so smart. I was doing the math the other night from Pro Football Focus, and when the line has properly protected him this year, he's completed like 73% of his passes and has only thrown one interception. So he really sees the field well. I don't know if your listeners know his dad's background, but his dad's an old NFL tight end and is the head coach of an XFL team.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got this pedigree that's just exactly what you look for in a quarterback. And that's the thing about him, guys. He's just like, his intangibles are off the charts for what a freshman brings to. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He's kind of short for a quarterback, but we heard the same things about Purdy, and that's the type of quarterback that Campbell, I think we're learning is really good at, building an offense for. And again, I'm not saying he's going to be top 5 quarterback in the NFL or wherever you would put Brock right now, but he's that same style of guy. And when Brock came in as a freshman, you saw the same type of thing. And he's the type now where they've put in a lot of design quarterback run. I think that'll be huge on Saturday night, because I just don't think Iowa State can hand off the ball to the running back and expect to run the ball against Texas. No way. I just don't see any scenario in that happen. So they are going to run the ball. Rocco has proven now over the last couple of weeks that he's a guy that can do that.
Is it one of those that Iowa State's going to need a couple of breaks, or at least somehow Texas drops one on the ground, or they get a break, or force a turnover or two?
I think so, because Iowa State plays this weird defense, right? and with the 3 down linemen. And I just, like, they're good up front this year, but they don't have Will McDonald. Okay. So they've struggled to get pressure with 3 as often this year. And kind of like, I just don't believe Iowa State's going to be able to just straight up run the football. I don't think they're going to be able to line up 3 guys and get pressure on Quinn Ewers either against that Texas offensive line. So John Haycock's going to have to get really exotic. And with that, it can force some turnovers. Some quarterbacks, like the kid from BYU last week, lost his mind when he saw that look. Quinn Ewers, I would expect more out of. But, yeah, it feels to me maybe you block a punt. You know, I don't think it'll be a fluke. I mean, listen, Texas the last month has not been great. Like, they've got out to these big leads and lost them, and they've had a lot of chances to lose games. So they're not invincible. But, you know, the matchup in me, when I break it down, I think Texas wins by 10. But then I also been to these weird night games and Ames, and weird stuff happens, and, you know, that snowball gets rolling, and it's going to be a really lively crowd, and it's going to be nice out, but it's still November in Central Iowa for a Texas team. Like, weird things can happen. So, yeah, I think Iowa State doesn't have to play perfect, but they're going to have to force some Texas errors that they're going to get out of this one with them.
How much has the loss of Jonathan Brooks at least come into play? They have a 5-star. Baxter's a great talent. He can go too. He's busted loose. But to not have Jonathan Brooks, they have other weapons, but he was special.
I think it's a really big deal because this Iowa State secondary is the strength of its team when it's healthy. And they're getting Jeremiah Cooper back, who has been out. I think he actually went out in the back half of that Baylor game. And they haven't had him since. And he was an All-American candidate leading up to that guy. He's one of the leaders in interceptions in the country, and I think they're getting him back. And, listen, I know – listen, and this backup will come and run for 200 now. But he still hasn't seen as much live football. I mean, it does matter, right? Like, it's a big deal, especially with an Iowa State defense where I think you're going to have to pick your poison, right? Like, what do you want to stop? Especially with, you know, the issues I just laid out. So even if it's a downgrade, if you're going from a 5-star to a 4-star, I still think that could really matter in this football game. Because the one thing is, it's like, guys, if you line up player by player, Texas is more talented across the board. There's no doubt about it. But this John Haycock is a really good coordinator, as you well know. And he'll have something ready for them. And then it'll be, you know, if they do put the ball on the ground, where does the bounce go, right? Like, if Ewers throws one up in the air, can you take advantage and can you get it? Then it comes down to execution. I think Iowa State will have a good game plan.
Chris, not involving the game, but involving the future of the Big 12. You saw the schedule released, a lot of hand-wringing about the fact that they did not protect Kansas State and Iowa State, a.k.a. Farmageddon. As far as the rivalries, they'll have, you know, Arizona State, Baylor, TCU, Utah, BYU, but not Iowa State, Kansas State. I saw a lot of backlash on Twitter, but on your end, was there a lot of anger about that? Just your feelings on that not being one of the protected rivalries moving forward?
Yeah, there was, and I got to be honest and admit when I'm wrong sometimes. I didn't we were on the air when it happened, and I didn't even react. Oh, okay. But the fans were really upset about it. I guess I am of the opinion where my biggest thing, guys, with Iowa State is I wanted to protect as much as possible the old Big A. And I include Colorado in that. Like, whatever. Like, they left for a while, they're back. But I just wanted to see Iowa State have, you know, as much Oklahoma State, Colorado, Kansas State on the schedule as possible. But it's really hard to make a schedule with 16 teams.
Yep.
And, you know, I think they did a pretty good job. Like, all those teams that I just listed, Iowa State will play 3 of 4 years. The one thing that sucks is I think that's the longest running rivalry in college football right now. If it's not, it's like the second longest. So you are giving up on some history there. And that's a bummer. But for some reason, and I do not know why, the two athletic departments at Iowa State and Kansas State have never embraced it. They've never, like, that should be a trophy game in my, like, be a big John Deere tractor. John Deere can have the naming rights to it and call it Farmageddon. And like the fans love it. The fans eat it up. These two athletic departments have never taken that step. So it tells me they probably didn't fight for it in the room, much like I'm guessing Baylor and TCU did. Right. So, for some reason it didn't happen. I didn't react that strongly to it, but I can tell you I whiffed on the fan base because the fan base ticked off.
Oh, yeah. No, they did. We saw that, a lot of the reaction. Hey, Chris, appreciate the insight, the truth serum, also your knowledge. Enjoy the game Saturday night, Texas in Ames against Iowa State. And one more hurdle for UT, one step closer to a Big 12 championship game appearance. And Iowa State can really put a big, huge wrench at all of them.
Whew, man, that would be something if Iowa State could jump up and pop them. That would be great for, chaos fans out there. But, easier said than done, as he pointed out. There's not a lot of matchups, but that's the case for everybody on UT's schedule outside of Oklahoma and Alabama. So we'll see if they have better luck than TCU, Baylor, and so many others. But, again, easier said than done, but that should be a terrific atmosphere.
We are now joined by Fox Sports' Tim Brando. Speaking of truth serum, here we go, college football. Buckle up. Tim Brando has Washington State and Colorado this week. Both teams are struggling quite a bit. And, Tim, thank you as always for your time. We have a lot of topics to get to, but two teams that are on a free fall. Your thoughts about the access you're going to have with Deion, Colorado, and also with Washington State?
Well, I'm excited about it. Very excited about seeing Deion because it's been a while. Spencer and I worked with him at CBS, and we broke bread a few times together. And, of course, I covered him as a collegian at Florida State when he played for St. Bobby. And he even did a game day open back in the Ice Age, long before some of you guys were around, where he came down in his Trans Am with a $1 million signing bonus he got from George Steinbrenner. And he had a Trans Am with the T-tops down that he had just purchased. He's there in the driveway of his house with his mom, and he peeks out from the top of the T-tops, took the T-tops off, and he said, "Hey, Tim Brando, how you likes me now?" And it was a golden moment in my young career hosting College Game Day on ESPN back in those days. That was in '87. That was during that period when he was saying, "I'm going to take it back," the punt against Clemson, and so many other great things that he did for Coach Bowden at Florida State at that time. It was so I've known him forever. My career and as a broadcaster really mirrored his. I followed him even my days with the Braves when I got the World Series ring working with Ernie Johnson Sr. He was a player for the Atlanta Braves when he was also playing for the Falcons. So I was there for all of that and saw him evolve and emerge from that point forward. And then living in Shreveport as I do, and knowing how many Cowboys fans there were when Jerry Jones got him away from the 49ers, when San Francisco had stopped the potential three-peat with Aikman and Smith and Irvin and those guys, and they went right back with Barry Switzer and won a Super Bowl. Deion was part of that, and then he comes into television and just immediately hits. Just a really, really talented guy. And I don't know that a lot of people understood what I did about him, and that is the bling and the bravado, is immense, and maybe it's too immense for some. But if you get to know him, and I have really well through the years, he has evolved into, truly one of the great leaders of men that we have, whether it's in coaching or, as a layperson. I mean, he really does play the role of father and mentor to these kids that he coaches. And I'm thoroughly impressed by it. He hit a tough patch, and a couple of games got away from him. The two games, especially the one with Stanford in the second half, which I think he got a little lesson in what can happen with college players, particularly at the highest level. When you're competing at this level, when you exhale, as they did in the second half against Stanford, they got burned. And then it happened again, really, with a couple of breakdowns last week. They should have won those two games, so they'd be bowl eligible right now. But I think the intrigue and how do I put it, the juice, you would think Patina would be down just a little bit with them losing these games of late, 5 of their last 6. But the truth is, he still must see TV. That's why we're doing this game. Fox wanted Spencer and yours truly to be on this game rather than the Oregon-Arizona State game on Fox on Saturday. And then we had a lot of eyeballs on Friday night. There's no other game going. And, he's worth about 2.5 to 3 million viewers just because he's coaching the game. Mm-hmm. No coach in college football has that cachet. No one, not even Saban. If Saban's team were 500, would anybody really care? No. I mean, I remember when he was coaching Alabama and they went 500 and lost to my alma mater in his first year. Not many people cared, but the following year they really did because he got it together. He's just a unique individual. There's no one like Deion. Probably will never see the likes of him again as a player or as a coach. So it's must-see TV. And, the Washington State story here is equally impactful because think about it. They had 4 straight wins. First time they had done that in a long, long while. They had beaten 2 ranked teams. The victories over Wisconsin early and then Oregon State early were huge, especially when you consider what Oregon State has done since then. And for them to have lost 6 in a row is pretty amazing. Cam Ward is a great talent. I'm going to be really intrigued by what that kid does against Shedeur Sanders because Ward, as you know, was a kid that nobody knew about. And I don't even think Cam Ward knew how good he was when he was coming out of high school, in West Texas, and winds up at Incarnate Word and then follows his coach to Washington State. And he hit big right away. Spencer and I were here when they played Oregon last year. They had a big lead. And then Bo Nix, the legend of Bo Nix, really began in the second half of that game. Oregon came from down 3 scores to win. And I don't think Nix has looked back since. I think his position as really one of the favorites for the Heisman, if not the favorite, really started with that game against Washington State last year. But so they're good teams. And one of them, I think, has a shot to get bowl eligible, but they got to win this game tomorrow. And I've said this all along, Smoak. You know this. If Deion wins 6 games, if he can win this game and then somehow beat Utah the following week and get bowl eligible, I think he's coach of the year. I think he's absolutely coach of the year when you consider where that program was and where he's taken it in just a calendar year. That's incredible. But again, he's got to take care of business in this game. Martin Stadium is a pit, man. It's hard to get a road win in the Pac-12 or the Pac-8 or the Pac-10 when you play in this place. Going back to the Gardner Minshew era when game day was here, and Spencer and I had that game with Oregon when Herbert was playing. It was incredible. Oregon had no chance that night. So it's really hard to get a road win at Wazzu.
Tim, so obviously since Deion is, elite, that means he's a candidate for the A&M job, like every coach seems to be. Even though he said no, Urban said no, Dan Lanning said no, I think Mike Norvell said no. So realistically, what is A&M's pool in your mind?
So did Urban say no today? Was that official?
Yeah,
Urban
he
said no today.
Yeah, he said that he was, happy with 37 years of coaching and where he was, and I would just think that for A&M they might want somebody who theoretically would be there longer. Urban seems to be, if he was coaching, kind of the Larry Brown phase of his career.
Right. No, that's a very good comparison, actually. Yeah, and I had said it had been suggested by Jake Crane yesterday when I was with him about Urban, and he did make a lot of sense because of the people that are looking to make the purchase. Okay, those oil barons, especially the ones that are my age and a little older. Procuring a guy like Myers sounds really good to an Aggie.
Yeah.
But I also felt, and I understand it, that Urban's at a stage in his life when maybe this is not the right time. I do think that he's interested in helping programs find the right coach. He likes that role, okay, because he's got a lot of tentacles in the coaching profession that are still out there, and maybe he can help those guys as a counselor find the right guy. But I really believe, you heard what Dan Lanning had to say, and I think a lot of coaches in that position. Prime is another example, by the way. He's not interested in going to Texas A&M right now. I'm going to meet with him tomorrow night, and we'll probably chuckle a little bit about it. Prime's interested in making his own history, okay, not rekindling somebody else's. And A&M believes it has history. Now, they don't have history as national championships or being dominant, okay? But to say that they don't have any history, come on now. I mean, the Junction Boys, Jackie Sherrill's run, R.C. Slocum was a staple of that community and still is. I don't want to throw what those guys' achievements were under the rug because they were plentiful. It's not just about national titles. So I think somebody that makes a lot of sense, that is on his way up, okay, but has really proven to be an outstanding coach, is somebody they're going to take a long look at. And maybe to some extent, because of the buyout with Jimbo, maybe a lot of that money is saying, you know what, we want to make a more sensible hire this time. We're willing to pay, but let's not just go overboard and make another Jimbo type of hire, which to me lends itself to maybe a guy like Fish at Arizona, who just beat Dion and has really turned Arizona around. I mean, that's a hell of a job he's done. And that guy's coached some in the NFL. He's been everywhere. Jeff Traylor, what he's done, he's a Texas legend. He's a high school legend. Mm-hmm. The UTSA job, he's really turned it into, they've challenged in a league with Tulane, who I think has the best program outside of the so-called Power Five. They've been very challenging, and the Racers are, and that whole city is really behind him. He'll turn up the volume if he gets there, and he'll get great players in the state of Texas, which I think is important to the Aggie faithful, particularly with Sark and the Horns making their way in on a run here that looks a hell of a lot better than the Aggies recently. Okay, so a guy like Traylor could offset some of that tremendous momentum and lead that the perception is Texas may have going into the SEC. And as you guys know, this is true at A&M and at Texas, much like it is at Alabama and Auburn. So many of the decisions that are made at places like Texas and Texas A&M have to do with what their donors feel about what the other is doing. Okay. For years, Alabama couldn't get it right, and they were being dominated by Tommy Tuberville because Auburn was ahead of them. And so they made decisions in Tuscaloosa that, they got sidetracked. I think that's happened some with both Texas and with Texas A&M through the years because they're concentrating too much on what's going on at the other place as opposed to at their own house. So I think that the Traylor hire in particular is one that I sort of like. I like the idea of that. And now that some of those big names, like you mentioned, Urban especially, have come clean that they're not interested in this point in time, then I think that opens the door for A&M to make its move. And I think it's important they make the move soon. With all those guys in the portal, all those guys, all that great talent, you want to get somebody in that can re-secure, re-recruit all that great talent. And Traylor would be, I think, an excellent choice in that regard. Proximity and success in the state of Texas.
Tim, you mentioned you're going to be in Pullman coming up on Friday night, but elsewhere in the Pac-12, 5-11, Washington at Oregon State. The Beavers are favorites in this game, and that's pretty much been the case all week long. I think they're like 2.5-point favorites as it stands right now. Are you expecting chaos in Oregon State country coming up this weekend?
Well, I expect carnage everywhere, this time of year. November is always about that, and we always act shocked. Mm-hmm. The national pundits, the national media will go, oh, my God, did you see that? How could that have happened? Boy, that throws a wrench into everybody's plans. Wait, how many more times do we have to see an Iron Bowl upset or a Civil War upset or an Apple Cup upset or, whatever that changes the complexion of the postseason? It happens all the time. I know that our friends in the SEC are counting on it. Alabama fans especially are counting on Texas to go down somehow, some way. Could Iowa State pull it off? Ames is hard. Ames is a very difficult place to get a win. It's it's sort of the Big 12's answer to Martin Stadium here in Wazzu. It's a tough place to play as a road team. It really is. And if you look at the situation at Reser Stadium, I've been there twice this year. Chip Kelly, who's rumored to be fired at UCLA, he had it rolling. He had that 5-star freshman quarterback ready to go. They roll into Oregon to Reser Stadium to play against Oregon State a few weeks back, and they got absolutely drilled. Oregon State dominated them. And UCLA's defense going into that game was the best in the Pac-12. All across the board, their defense was playing at a very high level. Now they are really struggling. So Oregon State has tipped over a lot of teams that felt like they were on the way to accomplishing something great. Jonathan Smith knew all along that the gauntlet was right now. It was a backloaded schedule. So he's prepared for this. They've had a couple of open dates. They've stayed relatively injury-free. Uiagalelei has very quietly had a real bounce-back year at quarterback. In a league with great quarterbacks, he probably would have to be considered middle of the road in the Pac-12, but that kid can make plays. Can make a lot of plays. And their defense is very active and hard to beat, particularly when they play at home. So Washington had better bring it, and those 3 wide receivers had better be physical in the way they run their patterns. I think the best 3 receivers on one team, McMillan to go with Odunze, those guys are unbelievable. Now, you can make a case that Marvin Harrison, Wes Neighbors are better individually at the wide receiver position, but I don't know of a team that's got 3 better than Washington. Those 3 are incredible. And Michael Penix knows that, and he has zero concern when he throws up a 50-50 ball. And I think that's the difference for Washington. If they're going to win the game, they're going to have to win those 50-50 battles against the Oregon State secondary. The other one that jumps out at me, fellas, besides that game, and there's several others, but the other one that jumps out at me that people are probably sleeping on is that Arizona State-Oregon game. You saw what Arizona State just did to UCLA. That's what got Chip in all kinds of trouble. Kenny Dillingham knows more about Oregon than just about anybody, does he not? Mm-hmm. Oh, hello. And the game is where? So they better not have a too full a cup of success themselves after what they did last week to USC. But I doubt that Dan Lanning will let that happen. He is an incredible coach. And I've said this all along. The last month of the season, even though they've got a loss, I think Oregon's been playing the best football of any team in the country. And it's unconscionable to me that a team like Washington that's undefeated, playing against the Pac-12 schedule, chock full of all those top 25 teams and great, and I do mean great, quarterbacks, could be considered a team that has to get help from Florida State losing with the committee. I think eventually Oregon or Washington will bypass Florida State. I think the Seminoles have a chance to lose. I'll put it that way. I think the game at the Swamp could be a real problem for them. You want carnage? How about that one to get the Florida faithful off of Billy Napier, to get a victory against Norvell and FSU? I think that's a real potential of that happening. So, yeah, a lot of carnage. People now are looking at the top 12 and talking about the matchups that we could have if we had a 12-team playoff now. I noticed that's a hot topic as I was coming in during my drive from Spokane through the Palouse today. And I'm saying, don't start counting the 12 now. Start counting the 12 after rivalry week, after Thanksgiving. It could be shuffled big time. And that's where some amazing matchups could be there for us to salivate over before we wait for this pathetic 14 playoff to finally come to a merciful end.
Tim, which of the drives from an airport to the city of where you're going to broadcast a game is the prettiest one?
Boy, that's a great question. That is a great question. Going to Oregon is pretty, man. From Portland into Eugene or Corvallis, they're essentially the same. You just have to drive a little longer to get to Eugene, especially with fall foliage. And it was out and it was sunny. We had a rainy day, typical Washington rainy day coming in from Spokane, but it's gorgeous too. Last year I was here in October for a game, and it was just marvelous. But I would say if you're going to the greatest drive I've ever taken, this has nothing to do with football. The greatest drive is from Tahoe to the Monterey Peninsula. If you guys have never made that drive from Lake Tahoe down to Spyglass and Pebble, that may be the prettiest drive you can take in the continental United States. And the other one that's really awesome is if you're in Seattle and you drive to Vancouver. Okay, if you go towards Vancouver, that's a beautiful drive too. But that's a great question, Smoak. I've not really thought about that too often, but those are pretty ones. And thankfully now somebody else is doing the driving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
So I'm able to take it all in, and I'm enjoying it. I don't like taking puddle jumpers into small college towns anymore, largely because they can cancel them so quickly.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck.
Yeah.
So I would rather fly into the bigger city with a bigger airport and an MD-80 at the smallest an MD-80, and then take the car service into the college town. Enjoy it. It allows you to enjoy the ride.
Yep. Take it in, soak it in. Paul,
Tim,
you're still mad because he brought up
Florida?
No.
Look, they almost got him last year in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
That Florida State had that kind of claw back in that one, and they play with their food, so to speak. All of that. And look, there's nobody who's great really this year yet. So
no. I'd say of the teams that everybody's talking about, the 12 top teams, wouldn't you have to say of those 12, at least 7 or 8 of them would have legitimate chances to win it all?
Sure.
This year.
Yeah. And Tim, if you threw this, out there and there's no matchup that could happen among any of the 4 permutations you could think that I would think would be so out of whack that someone would be like, oh, well, obviously Michigan could just win this. Now they might be the best team, but they also haven't played a team like Texas or Alabama or Florida or Washington or Oregon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, and I felt the same way about Georgia until last week. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what they did in the second half to Ole Miss. Okay. I'm a believer again. They, and the other thing that Georgia's got going for them now that they didn't have before, and I was really doubting them when McConkey was out, the receiving core was not healthy and they were really relying on Bowers. Well, those receivers, and they're not Sterling, they're not Neighbors, they're not Harrison, they're not Rome Odunze or McMillan at Washington, but they're really good. And with Georgia's run game and Beck really evolving, I think because of all the love that Jalen Milroe's been getting about his improvement, and it's deserved. I mean, he's really improved, but I don't think Carson Beck's gotten nearly enough plaudits for how he's emerged. I thought, man, that game against Auburn, which I had a really difficult time unseeing, how Auburn, a really bad Auburn team by Hugh Freeze standards in his first year, they could have won that game. And if Brock Bowers had not been playing, they would have won that game. Well, now they get Bowers back. He's not 100%, but they got him back. And these other receivers are now really healthy and serviceable. So right now, Georgia and Michigan are the 2 teams that, I really do see as being solid, and being there, that we can pretty much count on that. But everybody else is up in the air. I mean, we could take any one of 7 or 8 teams and say who's going to be 3-4, and that's where, to me, if you're looking for a team that's going to get into that 4th spot, provided, let's say for argument's sake, Florida State does win out. Okay. If Florida State does win out and Michigan does win out and Georgia does win out, then who are we going to see in that 4th spot? I got a hard time not accepting, even if Oregon beats Washington and the Pac-12 champion has a loss. I have a real hard time of thinking a Pac-12 champion in that league this year wouldn't get its 1-loss champion in. I think they would get in over, say, Alabama, who has 1 loss, but a loss against Texas at home. And that's suggesting to you that Texas is going to lose, which I believe they will. I think Texas is going to lose. whether it's at Iowa State or in the Big 12 title game. I think that I know they're chomping at the bit to get Oklahoma State in a rematch. I know they love that, but I just think that Texas is vulnerable. But I mean, you saw that second half against TCU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Brooks is now a little banged up, and now there's some talk about. I mean, I'm hearing. I don't know. I've not talked to Archie or Coop, but I'm hearing word that Arch might be considering a potential is out there. There have been published reports that he might transfer. There's a lot for Sark to handle right now, both on the field and off. They're certainly going to need a healthy Brooks because he's a difference maker. I mean, he is an absolute difference maker to that offense. So I question whether Texas can stay at one loss. But to me, if you were weighing either Oregon or Washington with one loss against Texas or Alabama with one loss, I would take the Pac-12 champion.
Yeah,
I would.
And Brooks is out. He's got the torn ACL, so he is out.
He's done.
Yeah, he's done.
So without Brooks, where do you go? I mean, as a playmaker, I know they've got a stable, and I know that I called one of their games. I saw when they were able to run the ball and when they weren't. And it's good that Ewers is back, and certainly they've got Xavier Worthy's a great receiver. He's one of probably the top 5 receivers in the country. But I think Texas is vulnerable here, and I think that the Big 12, when measured against the Pac-12, is also vulnerable in the committee's eyes when you're trying to get down to 14. Listen, it would all be so much more fun and enjoyable if we had 12 right now. It's just a damn shame we couldn't have done it this year. Mm-hmm. But I do think that next year people are going to see how awesome it's going to be. And then when the television committee gets together, and they already are talking about it, they're going to go to 16, fellas, in 26. When they have the new television deal, I can almost guarantee you it's going to be 16 teams. Those top 4 teams will not get a bye. They'll get an additional home game, which ought to make their fans happy.
Tim, we appreciate you as always. I know to give one more final note, it's been quiet. At least it appears it's been quiet with Michigan this week because of what was like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Right. And they went out and they punched Penn State, close game, but they were the better team. Your thoughts about what is the end game here?
Isn't there a chance that they could get that judge to grant a stay and Harbaugh could be on the sideline Saturday? Is that? Yeah. I think that's still the potential is there.
Yeah, Friday's the hearing. So
sounds like the potential is there for that, and this thing is only going to get, I think, more sordid and more nasty between the two. You guys heard what I had to say about it last week. I don't want to beat a dead horse on it. Because I still think a lot of Tony Petitti. I do. I think he's the right commissioner. I do think he got coerced a little bit here in a way that I did not like, but at the same time understand to a point. Does Michigan deserve to be punished? Yeah. But to the extent to which they have been here, I mean, you're going to have your head coach now. If he does serve this time, to go along with the time at the beginning of the year between the NCAA and the Big Ten, Jim Harbaugh will have missed over 40% of the season in terms of game coaching. Okay, which tells me something about the resolve of his football team.
Yep.
McCarthy is probably out of the Heisman race simply because of the stat no passes thrown in the second half of the Penn State game. So he's probably out of that mix, but I think that's not of concern to him. He's just a leader. He's like a Max Duggan. The kid's a winner, and he's a leader. And that's the thing about the Michigan offense that impresses me, how they just roll past people. You know what's coming. You can't stop it, whether it's Edwards or it's Corum that's running the football. They're going to eventually, nail you. They're going to beat you. They're going to beat you the Michigan way, which is what Jim Harbaugh's infrastructure is all about. So whether Jim is there or he's not, they're still winning the Harbaugh way. It does kind of take me back to the Bo Schembechler way, the team. And that's why I think Michigan, for me anyway, has a lot of credibility moving forward. Ohio State still hasn't shown me, okay, that other than Marvin Harrison, anybody can make plays. And McCord is still getting by in large measure because Jim Knowles' defense has evolved and is now playing the kind of defense we all thought they would have been playing this time last year and never did because they didn't have the right linebackers to play the defense that he wanted and designed that would work so well for him at Oklahoma State. What will be the end game here is I think Michigan, just like Auburn when the Cam scam thing hit in 2010, I think a few weeks from now we'll be going, everyone was gnashing their teeth and going berserk, but in the end, the Wolverines just were the best team. They may not have been the prettiest team, aesthetically fun to watch as so many of the others, but they had the resolve. So I picked Michigan at the beginning of the year. I'm going to stay with them. And it doesn't matter to me whether he's on the sideline or not. Even for the Ohio State game, I still manage to believe that they will get the job done. And when he returns, oh my God, imagine the buzz, for the college football postseason. So the other team that I really love, if not Michigan, would be the team that I had number 3 to start the year, and that was Oregon. That was a team I believed in then, and I believe Bo Nix is the best player in college football. The kid is just playing at a very, very high level. So I know a lot of Georgia fans are like, Brando, you ignorant slut, and that's okay. I can deal with that. Get in line with Bammer fan, okay? Yeah. Brando is an ignorant slut. I'm okay with that. But those are the two teams I really like right now. Michigan, regardless of the circumstances, I think it's just a rallying point for them with Jim and Oregon because Lanning and that staff and Bo Nix Bo Nix is just playing at a level beyond anybody's thoughts. He's like a pro playing the quarterback position in college.
Tim, as always, greatness. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Fox Sports, Tim Brando.
Happy to be with you.
You too. He's in Pullman, Washington. Washington State, Colorado. One of those two teams finally going to get another win after a nice start for both. They've fallen off the map. Not off the map because they're Deion and Colorado still get a lot of attention, great numbers. But, man, do they both need a victory.
Yeah.
When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5 is around the corner. There's some of the awards that are sending out their finalist list. Garrett, I think I sent you 2 or 3 of those. We'll look at that. Also, a very intriguing Chris Karpman, who covers Arizona State, note about the Sun Devils and NIL since Ray Anderson was fired. That and more. Paul's top 5 around the corner, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, and also where you want, if you need, hams or turkeys for what is Thanksgiving, which is hard to imagine a week from tomorrow or any time during the holidays, up into Christmas and even into the New Year's. Half spiral hams, pit hams, bone-in hams, mini pit hams, whole raw turkeys, whole smoked turkeys. I was there the other day, went by to get some peppered bacon, black peppered bacon. Enjoy putting that on in the morning on like a Sunday morning. And when I was there, there's this big tub of a bunch of tri-tip, a big tub of big brisket, and then also a bunch of hams, and also smoked and raw turkeys. It's the holiday season right around the corner. You can give them a call if you want to order it and go pick it up. You can also drop by their location, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Don't miss out on the biggest deals of the year during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adventure, style, and comfort of the new 2023 Jeep lineup. Shop our great selections in-store or online today and start your Jeep adventure.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitschke Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitschke Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitschke Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitschke Group at 1-800-258-8302. too.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Aaron, it's premium grade East Texas beef, and you're located just outside of Tyler. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, the kind of beef that people want. And then also your label is what catches people's attention as well.
Yes, we have a all-natural, pasture-raised Wagyu beef. It's a USDA label. That means our cattle never spend any time in the feed yard. They go straight from the pasture to the day of harvest, and we oversee the whole process from the beginning of the genetic choices when we make these matings to the time the calves are born to the feed choices all the way through when the animals are harvested. So we oversee the whole thing as a family, and we just believe, life's too short to eat average beef. So we offer people a chance to step up their game and try Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, couple of stories in college football, about 4 or 5 of them, including some of the awards that are down to the finalists. But Arizona State fired their AD, Ray Anderson, earlier this week. Chris Karpman, who was on with us back during the drama of what was going to happen with the remaining schools in the Pac-12, been told that at Sun Angel NIL has already doubled its number of monthly membership donors since Monday in wake of the Ray Anderson resignation.
Yeah, not surprising. He was reviled. He was reviled from day one. No one liked the hire. And then he hired Herm Edwards, who no one was happy about. And then Herm came in and had some good things happen early, then got him in an NCAA investigation. Like all of this. So no one was happy about Ray Anderson at all. And then at the end of it, he was one of the guys just like, no, the Pac-12, the Pac-12 is forever. Nothing's going to change that. And then he had some of the most egg on his face when it came to it, even after the decision was made. So, and like I said, when it happened, look, Ray Anderson's getting fired. Michael Crow's been there a long time, but this decision will also get him, when it's time for his retirement, they'll be like, maybe you've done all you can do. And so all of those things, because it was a huge misstep on the athletic department's part. And I think that is potentially one of the best AD jobs you can have, given on where it is and what they're not doing at Arizona State. Their fans will tell you, how can we have all this and be stuck in the middle at best, all the way around? And so whoever goes and gets that job has some good potential to make for growth.
Craig, I brought up they've doubled more than doubled the memberships of their NIL since Ray Anderson was fired.
Yeah, I think that's pretty damning. It speaks to just the feelings surrounding that guy. I don't know if y'all mentioned it or not, but let's not forget that he also announced the bowl ban right before the season started.
Yeah.
Here, Kenny Dillingham. Here's momentum. Let me strip the bowl game, self-imposed, from me right out of the gate. So there was that wasn't a very popular decision as well.
I forgot about that.
He, just didn't make many friends with the whole Pac-12, Big 12 situation. And one of those things where I can understand not being happy about it and not being happy being on the losing side of it because the conference you were in dissolved. But at the same time, you just peed all over the neighbor's front door, like right as soon as you moved to the neighborhood, like you were just like
West Virginia.
Just walked in, you're just like the enemy right away with your West Virginia comments. So I don't think that even the slight interaction that Big 12 fans had with him, I think you even got a reaction from those people of like, good, yeah, we didn't want him here either. So Arizona State fans and Big 12 fans can unite on that. And, I'm sure he doesn't really care all that much based on his attitude. But, yeah, he had some missteps, and this isn't a surprise. And this should be a good move forward for a new era for Arizona State athletics, you hope.
They're going to bring in money. Donors all of a sudden like, okay, now I'll support you. And that's the way it is at a lot of schools. Losses, coaches who have been fired or not or whatever. Now this one. Joseph Duarte earlier today that Dana Holgorsen mentioned that Matthew Golden being offered 6 figures by SEC schools. Matthew Golden's response to that, I'm 1,000% committed to what we are building here at U of H. Tough times don't mean you jump ship, especially for a few dollars. We have to finish the season strong. And the only thing I'm focused on is supporting my teammates this week against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, he's a really good player, so it's not surprising that he's already getting NIL offers. I mean, we get that that's already going on. I don't like that, though, guys. I mean, I get it. It's fun. It's going to make for an interesting offseason. But, I mean, here you're Dana Holgorsen, and I get it. Step your NIL game up. It's like, well, not everybody has 200,000 living alumni, and 100,000-seat stadiums, and that's where this big disparity is going to continue to grow because the TV money's growing for certain few and not for others. And so this has already become commonplace. It'll become even more commonplace, the whole feeder system farm league. Like, that's what this is. And so, he's a bright spot on that team. Obviously got banged up here recently, which is unfortunate, but he's a really good player. And, I commend him for having that attitude. Not a lot of people would. Will he stick with it? Or will eventually the offers get to a point where, like, Uncle Jim or, your mom or your buddy's getting your ear and you're like, dude, there's like $100,000. Like, you're not going to make that or even it might be more than that. It might be $500,000 for all we know, whatever the case may be. But I would imagine those offers will continue to come in until he's like boots on the ground starting the season next year. Because remember, Alton McCaskill went through the entire spring and then bolted for Colorado right as spring ball wrapped up. They thought he was going to be their running back, and he's barely even played at Colorado.
He's redshirted.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even a factor for them. So I just hate that. From the standpoint, I love it for the kid, the young man. I love it for his family. It's life-changing money, and it's money that's deserved. But I just don't like how you can just go pick guys off rosters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unleashed, no rules free agency, and I think there's a place for it. But I don't like that the season's not even over and you got people that are calling a player on another team and offering him up money. I don't think that's right. I just don't, and I think there's a way to do it, but I don't know how you possibly do it, and I'm not the one to figure that out.
It all seems to, a lot of this happened, and some can take advantage of it more than others, and you better win, or even if you win, you lose somebody. But it seemed to happen during the time when we were all somewhat like crippled with what was going on during various things with COVID.
Yeah.
That's when the transfer portal kicked in. That's when the NIL basically was allowed. And it's like everyone was like frozen. And if you have a team that's winning and you're also having NIL and all that, that's great. But it does seem that a coach still has games left, not only worried about his own job, but also re-recruiting Caden Jenkins, or in this case, with Golden.
That's why I don't think necessarily to keep using the term guardrails. I actually just think this needs sunlight. I think the whole deal about how universities can't directly get involved and do this is dumb. Like, it's dumb. Because you're just doing a bagels and cream cheese rule again. Like, everybody knows what's going on. Like, you need to just put sunlight on it, and then that way, if it's out in the open and we know how much Matthew Golden is getting offered and like what the going rate is and all these things, like you do in professional sports, because
like LSU called Matthew Golden and he's apparently in the mix. Like, let's just be open about it if we're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like when Shohei Ohtani signs his $500+ million contract here in the next month with whoever he signs with, like, it was never going to be a secret. Like, nobody's going to be like, oh, he's playing for the Dodgers. Wonder how much he's making. Like, that's not going to be the case. So the more you get like professional sports, the more you're going to have to just put in the rules that they have so that you can protect yourself. But there's this whole thing, like, since the rule has been there, that they want to keep it like it was the old way. Well, it's not the old way anymore, so just put sunlight on it and let everybody know. And for Houston, I mean, I think you need to call Uncle Tillman and say, hey, buddy, I know that we already asked you for a lot, but can you help rally some of the troops?
He's probably already been on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, with Matthew Golden, he's a Houston guy, so maybe that plays into it more than the money part of it. But eventually, there's enough money where he can change just about anybody's mind. We'll see. I do think the odd part to me, and like I said, I embrace all of the hey, go offer a guy on another team or whatever. I just wish that it was a little bit more like in the sunlight, like Paul said. And I don't understand why people don't want it to be. That's what's the part that is confusing to me. The ones who are like, no. It's like almost like, well, why would you be worried about that? Because you're doing stuff that's not, within the realm of the rules. Is that why you're worried about it?
If you tamper with somebody on another team in the NFL, you could lose a first round.
That's why
pick.
Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
That's on a certain side of things.
Yeah.
That's why they don't want it, because they want to be able to tamper. They want to be able to go ask Uncle, John, how to get into the back door to ask a guy midway through a season, how to be able to throw an offer at him and let him know that, Washington State's got an offer for him down the line or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that's the part. And especially with this sport, like, let's be honest about it. Like, why do we pretend like it's not slimy and murky and dirty in some ways? So it is that. But I think that to maintain that, yeah, certain people don't want there to be light shed on the process and would rather it be in the dark of the DMs or the phone calls to family members and totally unofficial and without any sort of oversight. And so that, to me, is the funny place that we find ourselves, where you're actually fighting for that as opposed to – because everybody agrees the players should get paid. Everybody agrees they should make money for the most part. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, but like I don't know why there's this. The one thing that people stop down on when it comes to that is like, well, we can't get into the details of it though. We can't have like actual information out there. We got to keep it as secret as possible. So yeah, that's very odd to me, but that's very college football is what that is. So Matthew Golden, good on you. We'll see what happens in the long run, but that would be obviously a huge coup for Houston, and they really need to have a guy like that to build around.
No, they do, and I voted for him. I think it was with the Associated Press, whatever that All-American team, the survey, I put him down as the return man, the All-American punt kick returner. We're not going to have time to put up all of this because we're out of time with Paul's top five, but the Unitas Golden Arm Award included Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams. The Lombardi Award, which is also the best offensive or defensive lineman, included Georgia's tight end in Brock Bowers, Joe Alt from Notre Dame, Jonah Ellis from Utah, defensive end, and Leatu Atu, the tremendous player, defensive end for a defense that's not very good at USC. UCLA, excuse me.
Which is a very good defense, or a pretty good defense.
Yeah, no, they're pretty good defense. They need a win, too. Let's see. Was there one more? The Nagurski Award. There's a lot of names with the Nagurski Award, but there's more than just 3 or 4. But those are some of the national awards that were handed out, or at least released today.
How good is Brock Bowers? Hasn't played in 5 games. Is still on that list. And most of the time I would say, yeah, maybe you take him off. Like, no, he's still that damn good.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, like there would be times where I'd be like, look, you got to take that guy off. He hasn't played for 5 weeks. He's injured. Like he may not even play until the playoff. I think he might play in the SEC title game. I know he's back in practice, but they can win without him. But he's such a difference when he's in the game for them that you have to put him on that list.
What's the number of games before you don't have to?
Yeah, I mean,
you shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy like Bowers, I mean, he might have been able to play in 1.
No,
but normally I would say that, but look, the votes were in, so. I mean, the other thing is, okay, I'm going to take Brock Bowers off.
Those votes were this week.
Yeah, this week. So I'm going to take Brock Bowers off. I'm going to put somebody on, and there's plenty of deserving candidates, but you also have to make the argument of like, okay,
yeah,
and he may not win it because of that.
Yeah,
Joe Alt might win it because he's a fantastic offensive lineman.
Tonight, both James Madison and Jacksonville State will be discussed, and likely possible decision tonight, yet again, on the postseason waivers that they're looking for. There are 4 different NCAA committees involved in the waiver process. A decision could come as early as tonight. We know that they've been rejected.
They were just rejected.
Golly, it's like going back and hitting your head against the wall.
They should go put it in front of Brett Yormark in the Big 12. They'll change it, boom, just like that.
Wow.
Doesn't matter when it happens.
All right. Thank you, Garrett Ross. Thanks to Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, Jack McKenzie. Thanks for that quick update on that, too. Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wazzu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 Boise State coaching candidates. Number 5. Ryan Dinwiddie, who is currently the coach of the Toronto Argonauts. And I don't know what CFL head coaching money is, but I do think that Mountain West coaching money could probably beat it a little bit. Plus, he's an alum. The Argonauts are, as Canadian football goes, a fun team to watch. And not to say that I've watched them a lot, but they do have a high-flying offense, and I will turn on a good CFL game occasionally because I do like the 3-down format. It's fun to me. But Ryan Dinwiddie could be a candidate. Look, if he wants to get back into the coaching in the States, then this would be a great one for him. Now, recruiting and all the other stuff would have to come with it. That's why I put him at 5, but he's a really interesting name on this that could maybe come out of nowhere.
Because of the Boise State connection.
Yeah, because of
he's a former quarterback there and arguably the greatest quarterback in the history of the school. So he's got that history there that would make a lot of sense and makes that tie. Because otherwise, it's like, why a random CFL coach? I mean, why is the Toronto Argonauts guy being considered for this college football coaching job? But there is that connection there. So with that background. And familiarity, that'd be an interesting choice. I don't know the last time, if ever. I'm sure it's happened at some point in the long history of college football, but a CFL coach jumping to go take a college football coaching job, I can't think of that off the top of my head, but that would be an interesting move and would have to reacclimate to the American rules of football, get a little bit of a smaller field there. But, I'm sure that familiarity will go a long way, and his background as well. So, that's an interesting name.
So where did he play college ball?
Boise State.
Kellen Moore, the best quarterback you've ever had?
Hold on. Let's pause. Let's let the list happen. Let's let the list happen.
Breathe.
Yeah. Number 4, Ryan Grubb from Washington, doing a great job there. Is from he was on Kalen DeBoer's staff. He's been up to the Mountain West. Really highly thought of. If you're looking for the guy who, the Power 5 coordinator to G5 head coaching job to, follow his head coach's path in Kalen DeBoer, it's probably Ryan Grubb right there on his own staff and recruits that part of the country. They've recruited the Mountain West and done well, obviously, with the Fresno State gig. But Ryan Grubb from Washington, also a candidate to watch when it comes to this.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of the assistant head coaches and the coordinators that are going to start getting play of not the normal names that we hear. And so, with Washington's success, that makes a lot of sense. With his history over in that part of the country, that makes a lot of sense as well. South Dakota guy. Guy's been in the game for the last couple decades and made a nice little mark for himself and is obviously on a great run with the Huskies right now. So, not too far away and interesting name to roll with. I was looking, though, at the Boise State thing. Yeah, Kellen Moore would probably have that title now, but Dinwiddie still got single-season passing record, single-game passing record. I mean, Moore's got the career. Brett Rippon now has more career yards as well, so Dinwiddie in that regard is like
just
number 3.
Left Jared Zabransky out of the conversation altogether.
He's not anywhere near.
Kellen Moore's deal was that when he retired, he was the all-time winner and broke Colt McCoy's record, I believe, for most wins in a career. And, of course, that I'm sure I'm not sure if anyone's has passed that by or not.
But I did want to make mention, though, we were talking about the carousel and all that. When the whole Oregon State, Washington State thing happened yesterday, did y'all see Jeremiah Dickey's tweet? Basically like, here we go. Yeah. And so the timing of it, there's no way that wasn't timed to be in reaction. There's no way that was a coincidence that he was reacting the way that he did. And it wasn't like, we're going to the Pac-2 or anything, but it was very much of like, all right, here we go. Like, this is Boise State's chance if they're going to rebuild the Pac. That's how I took it. I think that's how most people took it. So that'll be something to watch. But, he's also got to hire a football coach here. Yeah. So
Number 3, Jeff Choate who is the co-DC and linebackers coach at Texas right now. He is not a Boise State grad. He is I'll give you guys one guess each where Jeff Choate went to college.
Georgia Tech.
No.
I have no idea.
He went to Montana Western.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so he went to Montana Western. He's a linebacker there at Montana Western. He coached there for a little while. He's coached at Boise State in a couple different stretches. He's been at Wazzu, Florida, Washington, Montana State as the head coach. And then now he's been the last few years at Texas under Steve Sarkisian, who he's with at Washington before. This is a Montana guy, through and through. And so would not be a surprise, especially given how well Texas defense has played and his big part in that. He's the linebackers coach. He coaches Jalen Ford, who, if I were to rank the linebackers in this draft 1, 2, 3, I would say Barrett Carter, Jalen Ford. No, Jeremiah Trotter, Jalen Ford, Barrett Carter. Two of those guys are at Clemson, but Jalen Ford is fantastic. So Jeff Choate could get some play here.
Okay, Jalen Ford was last year as good as anybody. And obviously that defense with all that massive beef in front of him that's so good, it just makes him more opportunities for him to roam.
Yeah, I mean, it just clears the way immensely for those linebackers. But, Ford's a stud. He's not a guy that I'm sure in Austin it's different, but it's different whenever you're like in the hometown talking about the team. But I mean, broadly, it's not a name that you hear very much off of that staff. But there are guys very deserving of opportunities, and especially when you get these winning staffs or teams that are having a lot of success, it's only natural that they're going to spring off. And so, I mean, it's a logical candidate there given his background, and probably deserves a little bit more attention just for what they've been able to do. On the defensive side of the football, and linebackers obviously very good, as you mentioned.
Number 2, Kellen Moore. Now, obviously, he is with the Chargers right now, and he's interviewed for some head coaching jobs, but he would be I know when they hired Andy Avalos, they talked to him then. I don't know how long down the road, but I know the interest was gauged the last time he was there. He is I think it's a job he would take. I don't know, again, if he's very successful at it, then the NFL is always just going to come calling for him again because he's shown he can be a head coach. He's shown he can be a coordinator. And I don't know if anybody's going to come calling for him this year for head coach interviews, and they might. The Chargers are so up and down. They've had a ton of injuries and all that, but I think their whole coaching staff's about to get fired, because Brandon Staley's going to go.
They suck, man. That's such a forgettable franchise right now. Yeah.
And so
with Herbert as a quarterback,
yeah,
too.
He's good, but just as a whole, they are just so they're just there.
Yeah.
And I say sometimes about teams, they're just there.
Yeah. So I think he might feel pretty free to move on from that and go to a Boise State, and he is the favorite son. I mean, he's the all-time winningest quarterback. He's a really good play caller and coach. So this is something I think he totally would do. But again, the circumstances all have to be right.
Yeah, it's timing, right? As they're talking about Dan Campbell with A&M, maybe at another time you go have a head coaching search and Dan Campbell is just a layup of a choice and he's got an easy decision to make because of where he is in his career. But right now as head coach of a surging Lions team is not the time to go jump to the college ranks and jump into the SEC fray. But for Kellen Moore, maybe it is. They're near 500, so they're not vying for the first pick, but they're not going to win their division with the Chiefs and the Raiders and the Broncos. They're the worst team in that division when all is said and done, you would think. Or 3 at best.
Yeah.
But, there's not – I guess it would all just depend on timing in his life and how much he enjoys, coaching Justin Herbert. But, again, Brandon Staley seems like he's a foregone conclusion to be out of there pretty soon. So, yeah, you would think the timing might be right. The only thing is, do you want to – you are a Boise State legend. You will always be. But do you want to do the Scott Frost thing?
Yeah. No.
Do you want to be Scott Frost potentially? And so the competitor
or Brady Hoke at Michigan
any another number of examples. So do you want to be that guy? And I'm sure someone in his position, you've got the confidence that you will do a good job and you won't be that guy. But that's just the only thing that makes me pause.
Yeah. And number 1, obvious choice. He's not doing anything right now. He was really good at your place before. Brian Harsin.
Do the old Bill Snyder here?
Yeah.
Coming back.
Look, he went to Auburn because why wouldn't you try to go to the SEC and do that? And then he wound up in a place that's the craziest place ever And
Opelika, Alabama, right?
It's just there is. And I don't mean to dog on Auburn. They've had a fine history. They've won national title, all of those things. But
you better but your mentions are going to be.
But and they should
Catalina.
know. They should know this.
It's a beautiful town.
No, it is. No, I'm not saying anything about the town.
You were about to.
No, I'm talking about the alumni who have the.
Yourself.
No, I've been to Opelika. It's nice. But the alumni and the way that they have the little brother syndrome.
No kidding.
Compared to A&M to Texas, Auburn's got that just, if they walked up to the table in Vegas and A&M put their little brother syndrome chips down, they'd be like, here we go. And Auburn's like, oh, yeah, I'll see that and raise you.
Auburn's chips are more valuable.
Exactly.
No.
So, yeah, they're just absolutely little brother syndrome and got rid of Brian Harsin. So I think, he's back living there still. So you wouldn't even have to, give him a moving allowance. Just bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, he's the obvious choice. That would make a lot of sense for all parties, especially if he's still wanting to coach. And, Bill Snyder had to come back and save K-State, right, when they were floundering under, Ron Prince. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure Harsin is as well-equipped as anybody. Who could be better equipped to come back and try to get this thing righted? So I'm sure that's right there near the top of Jeremiah Dickey's list. Got a big decision to make, obviously, because – you hired Avalos and that didn't work out, and now you got to hire another guy, and this one needs to work out for you, and we're big fans of his. So, Brian Harsin, that seems like a no-brainer if it were to go that direction. That would not be surprising.
All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. We do have 365 Sports tonight, 1 hour for the best segments, whether it's an interview, discussion, whatever it might be tonight. We'll have that up for you. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, thank you, all of you in the chat room, the text line, and, of course, those who might just watch or listen to what we do. We appreciate you as well. I'm David Smoak. Good night.